Ladies and gentlemen, in Sri Lanka, it is customary that we ceremonially light an oil lamp, seeking the blessings of the gods above for the successful conduct of the program that we have ahead. And we are now going to invite the following people for the ceremonial lighting of the oil lamp. May we start, first of all, by inviting our chief guest and the keynote speaker, Mr. Lalit Veerathungal, Secretary to His Excellency the President.
We'd also like to invite Professor P.W. ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman ICTA, Chancellor University of Peradeniya, and also the Senior Advisor to His Excellency the President of Sri Lanka.
Chairman of WSA, Professor Dr. Peter Brook.
Let's not forget the CEO, Reshan Devpura, Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka.
We also would like to very warmly invite representatives of our valued sponsors, namely the strategic partner, Sri Lanka Telecom.
But we also have someone from the event partner, Microsoft.
Technology partner, Intel.
And of course the knowledge partner, 3M Sri Lanka.
And representing the WSA board, we would like to invite 4 people, namely Mr. Ralph Simon, the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Mobilium International UK.
Ms. Dorothy Gordon, Director General Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT Ghana.
Engineer Mana Al-Hashaj, the Computer Engineer from Kuwait, who is the Secretary General of the Kuwait E-Award.
And also representing the WSA Board, Dr. Elizabeth Court, Member of the Legislative Council, Hong Kong, SAR, China. Could we have all our invitees to please herald the lighting of the oil lamp now?
Make yourselves comfortable. We still can see some delegates who are not yet seated, so we would like to invite all you distinguished invitees to take your seats and make yourselves comfortable. We'd like to take this opportunity in wishing you all a very, very productive day ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to start, of course, by welcoming you to this wonderful day and, of course, the course of days ahead. And to do that, it's my pleasure now to invite Professor P.W. But before we go into that, we'd have a quick video for your viewing pleasure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you saw that tree, the tree which is called technology, and we sincerely hope and pray that you'll be able to reap or harvest a lot of good fruit from that technology tree and make yourselves smarter, as that's the objective that we have behind. All right, ladies and gentlemen, to officially welcome you all to this official opening of the WSA conference, we would like to now very warmly invite on stage none other than the chairman of the Information Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka, who also serves as the senior advisor to His Excellency the President and also the Chancellor of the University of Peradeniya. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor E.W. Apasinghe.
Everyone, you all have long lives. Mr. Lalit Peridunga, Secretary to the President. Professor Peter Brook, Chairman, World Summit Award 2013. Mr. Rishant Devagura, CEO, our CEO, and others, all the others from ICTA. Distinguished invitees, all local and international participants at this World Summit Award 2013 conference, ladies and gentlemen. I saw our good friend Brad Simon over there. I'm sure my first form of greeting, when I said I is familiar to you, Brad. And I don't know, and I'm not sure whether you would have understood the second form which I use today, that is Ningal, Niduri, Wala. That means the same thing. In Tamil, our sister language, and also the other national language of Sri Lanka. As Chairman of ICTA, Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka, I warmly welcome you all to this World Summit 2013 conference. It is indeed a great honor for ICTA to extend its welcome not only to be engaged in the deliberations of this August conference, but also to invite, in particular, the participants from overseas to take time off their busy schedules to sample the breathtaking beauty of our country and discover the mysteries of our 2,500-year-old history in ancient cities and legendary temples. I heard yesterday that some of you have already taken the liberty of traveling around and seeing even some of the most far-off places of Sri Lanka. I met one of the delegates yesterday who had been to Tripoli, which is one of the towns in the far northeast, and also Kandy, one of the most beautiful cities where my university, the University of Peradeniya, is situated. Few places have as many UNESCO World Heritage Sites packed into such a small area. Sri Lanka is also renowned for the warm hospitality of its people. You will meet warm and friendly people as you travel throughout the country. Your personal experience in this connection is the best proof of what I have said. Rather than my saying so, I think you should experience what I have said and convince yourself whether what I said is true, partly true, or not true at all. I would like to tell a little bit about how Sri Lanka is making use of information and communication technology. The country's development program is centered to the policy document of the government, namely Mahinda Rajapaksa, which you would have heard of already yesterday, and the Mahinda Rajapaksa vision for the future of 2010. The East Sri Lanka initiative, therefore, receives its guidance from these two policy documents, One of the aims of Mahinda Rajapaksa Vision for the Future is to make Sri Lanka 75% literate, ICT literate by 2016. It also put before the nation the challenge of becoming a dynamic regional hub by 2016. ICTA's activities are directed to achieve the target of Sri Lanka becoming a dynamic hub, especially the knowledge hub of Asia and the wonder of Asia. About 8 years ago, only some privileged city dwellers had easy access to the internet. This actually was touched upon by His Excellency at the address he made last night, that internet availability was not available to a large section of the people before 2005. His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa, in his far-sighted vision, called upon ICTA and asked us to work out a system for taking the computer to the village, to the ordinary man. The group came up with what one might call library for digital content. I know personally, and our Secretary of the District also knows personally, that His Excellency is basically from the village. He came from one of the most remote parts of this country. Whereas all the other leaders that we have had so far have settled themselves either in Colombo or in the near neighborhood. So he knows exactly the aspirations of the people in the far-off regions of this country, far-off regions of Colombo, that they are the people who should be given an opportunity to rise up so that the whole country would therefore rise up. There are 740 centers spread island-wide under the 1000 Nanzara project. This is also mentioned by the Secretary last night. These centers of wisdom outlets provide an island-wide service in bringing the benefits of ICT to the rural population. They also provide public access to information and communication services through a variety of means. They extend the benefits of ICT to communities which have not had access to such services. These have been set up in easy, accessible and convenient locations. The means of accessing content and services was thus invented, but it was also necessary to create the relevant content for users. And I don't have to tell you all on the importance of content, because after all, this conference is all about content for the use of users. Even though access to ICT devices was available in Sri Lanka, these will be useful only if there is relevant content to keep users interested. ICTA therefore implemented the e-society program, which entailed creating an empowered knowledge-based society. One of the strategies of ICTA's e-society program is to facilitate the development of innovative, locally relevant, local language content. To facilitate the development of innovative, locally relevant, local language content, ICTA took steps to enable the use of Sinhala and Tamil, those are our two national languages, in computers to ensure that what could be done in English using computers could also be done in Sinhala and Tamil. Thus, local language Unicode fonts were made available. A local language content portal, www.danama.lk, was developed. As the content range expanded and included many areas such as education, agriculture, health, commerce, and so forth, especially design software with facility for easy navigation was developed and distributed island-wide. Now, things which ICTA struggled with at the start are the norm. Government organizations are connected. Using Unicode, Sinhala and Tamil is the norm. Local language content is available. Over 300 trilingual government websites, Sinhala, Tamil and English, are now available. Sinhala and Tamil blogs are available. Of course, the English speaking have always been available. E-services are available. Government officers are mostly capable of using ICT nowadays. life has become more comfortable to people due to the positive and creative use of ICT. The core in the change to a life of greater comfort by the use of ICT is e-government. The basic definition of e-government is the use of information and communication technology for improving the efficiency of the government and providing better services to the people. The ICTA has supported many government organizations in implementing e-government projects aimed at achieving the above objectives. As examples, the e-revenue license project is one of the best examples of such e-government project. The e-revenue license project comprises the online connection of 9 insurance companies, 2 emission testing companies, 2 banks, and 9 mobile phone service provider companies to provide this connected e-government service. This type of solution is called whole of government solution, as a citizen can transact with multiple government organizations without visiting a single organization. This kind of solution provides the ultimate citizen-friendly services, as all their requirements can be met without stepping out of their homes. I have to speak a few words on our basic philosophy, which is driving us in our work. I have heard from you, Sir Mr. Veeratunga, about a guiding principle enunciated by the first CEO of ICTA, Mr. Manju Hattotua. At the time, Mr. Veeratunga was a consultant at ICTA. Even now, he is an ardent follower of that philosophy, according to which credit is not sought for any contribution made by us. It is followed strictly by Mr. Veeratunga in the true spirit of a public servant. These two of ICTA even today, we at ICTA only facilitate the development of infrastructure using our expertise, so that it can be used by relevant government departments to deliver its services. The relevant government department is entirely free to get the entire credit. As an example which is valid today, the Department of Immigration and Immigration is one of the winners of this year in the e-government and open data category for the Electronic Travel Authority ETA and integrated border management system. Almost all who have come from abroad, I am sure, would have made use of that facility, and you will be able to say how useful it has been, or you want to say whether there have been any shortcomings, in which case we can take steps to immediately remedy those shortcomings. As long as man remains what he is, as we all are, there will always be room for improvement. With the fund of experience and knowledge that this august gathering has, I am sure very useful practical recommendations will be made during the deliberations and sharing at this conference. These recommendations will go a long way in helping both the people of Sri Lanka and the world community to build a better world. That is what we all desire, a better world. There is more to be done, but what has already been done augurs well for the future. Finally, I now wish to revert to what I said at the beginning about making use of your visit to Sri Lanka to experience what its nature has to offer. Marco Polo said of Sri Lanka that in Ceylon, the finest island of its size, in the world. And this is the island to visit in a lifetime. May the time you spend in Sri Lanka be filled with rich and exciting experiences, the memories of which you will carry long after you leave our shores. I wish all of you a very successful conference and also a very pleasant experience in our country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience.
Warm words of welcome, and also the progress of the e-government initiative in Sri Lanka, and also broadening our horizons, and also giving a little bit of extra homework for Mr. Ram Simon as well, to learn another language.
That being said, we'd like to say thank you to Professor P.W. Singh for that wonderful speech. Ladies and gentlemen, direct your attention to the screen, please.
Information and communication technology has been making a tremendous impact on the development of the country, both socially and economically. Being sensitive to this reality and realizing that ICT literacy plays an important role in bringing about socio-economic development, the government set up the ICT Agency of Sri Lanka. Under Act No. 27 of 2003, ICTA is the apex government body responsible for implementing the Sri Lanka Development Initiative. Focused on this vision and the objective, turning Sri Lanka into the knowledge hub and wonder of Asia, equipped with a high ICT literacy rate, the Sri Lanka Initiative moves forward with the people and the nation.
Oh yes, a short message from the apex ICT policy body in Sri Lanka and the implementing organization for ICT-led National Development Initiative, ladies and gentlemen, in Sri Lanka, and that was a message from ICTA. We now take great pleasure in inviting a very special gentleman who in fact champions the cause of bridging the digital divide, and led the World Summit Award, WSA, since its very inception. And we'd like to very warmly invite the chairman of WSA, Professor Dr. Peter Brook, for his address.
When you look at e-content today, you're not looking at the serene islands in the quiet water. You're looking at little dinges in a stormy sea. Everyone in the room, everyone who works with technology knows that the work you do is not just governed by the direction you want to take, but also by the storm of technology development which moves us, drives us, and challenges us. Challenges us in terms of how we are coping with it and how to make sense, how to stay on top and not being drowned and go under. Technology changes not just the tools which we use, but they change, and that is the real challenge, they change the very economic basis on which we, as producers, as people who research, as people who teach, as people who adopt it for administration and for companies, as we do our own business. All those in this room who are doing every day creative work with technology, producing content, know that the real challenge is not just that you add another feature, that you add another dimension, that you add another dynamic aspect, but that you have to add another business model. And that way, the economic basis of sustenance, the economic basis of success, the economic basis of profitability is altered. The storm of technology which moves us is a fast pace, and it's easily done by all these millions of engineers who sit very much settled in the companies from Intel to Microsoft, from the telecom companies all the way to everybody else who delivers devices. These are our sponsors. These are also our people who drive us, and their work makes it difficult for the creatives, but also challenging to do what they need to do. We live in an age, and I said this yesterday, and I think the President has also alluded to this very smartly. We live in an age where the transformation through the digital technology is hitting us in our very hearts and in our minds. The sereneness of the island of Sri Lanka depends very much on the 2,500 years or more of tradition of agricultural cultivation. The success of countries in Europe and in North America, but also of the rising tigers in Asia, depend on the success of the routine work which people have done in factories, in manufacturing, in service delivery. The success of the Commonwealth, of the British Empire, all its independent Commonwealth states today depends on the routine work done in Sri Lanka, in India, in Pakistan, in Ghana, in South Africa, in Canada, by bureaucracies, where people know that going through the same paces every day is part of not just adding your experience, not just adding your own effort to a successful operation of administration, but that this is part of your productivity. This is part of how you are actually making a contribution to your organization or a company or corporation. None of this will be true any further. The slow accumulation of knowledge through routine work, be it on the field, be it on the machine, or be it in an office, is not enough anymore. We need to work differently. We need to aggregate our knowledge differently, and that is where e-content becomes so important. Because e-content is that repository. Elizabeth Potts said it yesterday very nicely in terms of looking back into the history and the heritage. But we also need to look forward into how we want to improve and challenge things. Now, the situation is not without hope, the situation is not without clarity, and the situation is not without direction. But the storm of technology is not just building up new trees like the internet we talked about yesterday, but it is a storm which takes away all which is weedy and woody, all which is not flexible and which is dead. It cleans the trees of our normal everyday lives in business, in public administration, as well as in schools, in hospitals, as well as in any other sector of society. It cleans it off, blows it away, and leaves that which is vibrant, which is alive, and which has actually an active contribution to make. Many people think that this is a generational issue, that people over 30, over 40, over 50 are dead wood, and they will be blown away and washed away. It's true. It's for people who are a little bit older and who are actually learning the digital tools slowly. It's a particular challenge. But it is also a challenge to merge that together and to work together on this level. To work together to share the insight and the experience which is there with that which is coming up. Scholars have distinguished technology according to 7 levels of interactivity. And the delivery of services is actually, when you look at the internet, how it transforms business, in 4 stages of information, communication, transaction, and today of semantic web. What this conference is all about is how to think this together, how to share it, and how to deal with this. One way in which we have to see how the changes of technology will also affect a meeting like this is that we will not have more speeches like the one I'm giving now. Because this is old style. It's very old style. We want to have interactivity on the tables. So I want you, after I finish here, shake hands with everybody else who's sitting on the table, introduce yourself, and say hello. That's the first connect. Second connect is that we want to actually have the people who give our talks, not to talk long, but to talk concise and to make a shot. Something which is to the point, which is clear, which hits a target, and which communicates something very essential. And then you want to engage in conversations and in working it through and discussions and seeing, I misunderstood this and I have understood that and I can contribute this and that. For this we have also created content trees. And if Nora would come inside the room, and she's coming in, Nora coming inside the room? We have created some content trees, and the content trees are to be used by everybody to post your ideas and your responses. And we will then have this on the Twitter wall. So we have this interactive as well. Now, the conference is structured in 3 parts. We will have in the morning, we will have this interactive short talk-led sessions. In the afternoon, we have the highlights, which are the presentations of the winner projects. And then we will have a number of different and added workshops. This conference is a conference from which you should take more than you have taken from graduate school if you have finished university, more than you have taken from your apprenticeship in a kind of technology shop, and more than you have taken from other places. But for that you have to invest. You have to invest in the people who sit next to each other. You have to invest in listening and to share what you have also to offer, and you have to invest your time and your attention to each other. Let me close. All this is only possible if we have hosts like ICTA, if we have hosts like Sri Lanka, who take away from us the pains of doing the routine things, dress the tables nicely, and give us good food. But that is an enrichment which we all can take and which we need every day. So let me thank again our hosts here very heartily, welcome you to the WSA Global Congress, and invite you to engage in an interactive conference which makes the interactivity of technology look very old and weedy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you to Professor Dr. Peter Brook, the Chairman, WSA. Well, as Professor Brook instructed you or brought your kind notice, I hope you got to know the person seated next to you. And when you do that, you will realize that, oh, you're different. He or she is from a different country. The likes and dislikes are different. And, well, this is what we say when we really analyze a fine example of global diversity. Fine example of global diversity coming onto one platform, and that is because you have the passion, you have the liking for e-content, and that's exactly what brings you together. Very, very encouraging indeed.
We have the WSA video, ladies and gentlemen, for your viewing pleasure.
And right now we'll come to the keynote address.
And of course, to do the honors, we'd like to call this gentleman who has a very rich reputation behind him. He is, of course, held the position of the Secretary of His Excellency the President of Sri Lanka since November 2005. He has also chaired the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization for 2010-2011. Furthermore, he is championed to cause the ICT development. In fact, he served as Director in Re-engineering Government Program for the ICTA at one time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our proud pleasure to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Lalit Thirathunga.
Professor Pepper Singer, Chairman of the ICTA, Professor Peter Brook, Chairman of the WSA, all distinguished colleagues and participants from all over the globe, friends. Well, once again I am here to say a few words to you, having welcomed you yesterday at the official inauguration ceremony at the Presidential Secretariat. Certainly it gives me great pleasure to be here with you today once again at this official opening of the World Summit Award Conference. And I certainly feel very honored to have been invited to make the keynote address ahead of what I am sure will be a string of brilliant presentations and rich exchanges on the world's best e-contents and innovative ICT applications. It's also wonderful to see so many participants from all corners of the world converging in one place. You will no doubt have noticed while moving around Colombo, even for a short period of time, that the city is teeming with preparations for a major international event. That is the 22nd Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, which comes to Asia after 24 years. And that will take place in a few weeks. Interestingly, which will also use a range of ICTs to make it a success. As you know, in today's global economy, ICTs are playing a pivotal role in driving the economies of nations. But this is not all. It's also playing a significant role in transforming societies, as you have already heard from His Excellency the President and Dr. Peter Brook. It is changing industries. It is changing the way we are delivering services. And to unimaginable heights. Today the ICT tools are far more powerful in their impact and perhaps even cheaper than it was some years back. In the face of these rapid technological developments and changes taking place all around us, there are two distinct issues that we are confronted with. One is the gap in availability of broadband infrastructure, usually between densely populated urban areas and sparsely populated rural areas. And second is the gap in broadband uptake between certain demographic groups with socio-economic factors often being key drivers. Although access is still an issue in most countries, the bigger concern is the actual take-up. Information communication technology skills and the capacity to use them are not equitably distributed, even when access is largely available. There can be several reasons for this, as I see. Well, lack of awareness is one. Another is the lack of required skills. But most significant of all is the lack of meaningful content, and that is where you come in. And that is why I say this particular gathering is going to be confronted with the challenges that not only Sri Lanka faces, but friends from all over the globe face. So I'm sure you will try to put your minds together, as Dr. Peter Brook said, and find some solutions that will leave us better than what we are today and what we are now. While the first two that I was talking about, which are the lack of awareness and lack of required skills, these can be addressed with relative ease through communication campaigns, training programs, skill development programs, school curriculum, etc. The third and the most important, that is the inadequacy of e-content. Solutions of digital content, services or applications that would be meaningful to people is a serious concern. This is why I believe we should have laudable initiatives such as the World Summit Award, which is a kind of a driver to make people think better and think innovatively. I must commend, and I don't hesitate to do this, I must commend Professor Peter Crook for the efforts of the WSA since this initiative was first launched at the very first World Summit on Information Society in Switzerland in 2003. The WSA drives home the fact that it is content, not technologies, that offers opportunities for economic development of countries. Unfortunately, today more investment is channeled on equipment, gadgets and technologies, while far less is being made on improving quality content. At this point, let me share with you a little bit of the Sri Lankan experience. Since recent years, Sri Lanka as well as many other countries in the region and elsewhere have embarked on ambitious programs to increase access to rural communities. And you heard it from His Excellency the President of Sri Lanka yesterday, that one of the main themes in his development paradigm is to ensure that rural communities are served and empowered well. Well, these programs aim at ensuring that every citizen has equal access to technology that will equip them to help themselves by learning, by accessing government services, grants and allowances that they are entitled to, by obtaining medical help that they need, or by setting up their own micro-business to make their lives better. Take the example, I'm taking some local examples if you don't mind. Take the example of the local farmer from a village called Gallery. That's a remote village in Sri Lanka's hill country. This farmer sets out from his home to take his produce to the market. You heard we have a history of 2,500 years, largely an agricultural economy dominates here. And this man has two questions in his mind. Should he take his produce to a particular economic center, or should he go to another economic center? That's his dilemma. Because he's worried about the price. To make a profitable decision, he now has the option of glancing at this simple, although not smart, mobile phone for the wholesale market prices in these markets. Armed with this knowledge, he will soon be on his way to his chosen destination. These are examples that I take from our villages and which we have seen working very well. The first step in the process of providing access and empowering communities is the setting up of the basic infrastructure with the computer hardware and necessary connectivity. We have made this possible in Sri Lanka by establishing rural access points, telecenters, or nanosalars, or even someone might call it knowledge centers across the country. The key factor is ensuring that all citizens of the country have access to diverse and unrestricted sources of information and means of communication. Our first nanosalar was opened way back in 2005, 1st January 2005. Well, the tsunami had struck Sri Lanka, unprecedented, was initiated by His Excellency the President. But from that time onwards up to now, we have over 700 nanosalars dotted all over the country, providing access to people, especially in underserved areas. Setting up of the infrastructure, although not without problems, especially in the early days when connectivity had to be provided by VSAT connections, was less challenging when compared with the more difficult task of ensuring the uptake of the technology. Of course, we had realized from the outset that mere installation of technological infrastructure is only a quarter of the problem solved. There were other factors more essential to transform this technology to actual use. As I mentioned earlier in my address, we had to find means to address three important requirements. First was the awareness factor. It was important that the communities we are seeking to serve understand what exactly they can expect the technology to deliver to them and change their lives. A second important factor was that they should have the basic skills required for accessing information or services. But most important factor was that there had to be locally relevant, local language, content and services, without which access would be completely meaningless. You heard His Excellency the President saying that one of his key initiatives has been to improve the English language capabilities of our children. That's because Sri Lanka was once a British colony, as you know. The level of English language was pretty high, but with certain changes in our education systems, there were so many generations that did not have the benefit of using this global language, without which you couldn't have access to information, without which you couldn't have used internet some years ago. Today we have local content, fortunately, but this was a challenge that the government faced. So coupled with the infrastructure development, we had in place a scheme which encouraged and stimulated the development of local language content and services of relevance to rural communities. But that is where 77% of our population live. Obviously we have to put more money into the rural communities if we are to forge ahead as a developed nation. Today, over 200 innovative ICT-based projects have been implemented. This includes offline and online local language content and services for farmers, school children, small businesses, women and children. Allow me to cite one or two more examples. In Lanka, that is in down south, a small fishing hamlet along the southern coast of Sri Lanka, an enterprising operator came up with a solution to help fishermen. He plugged on the satellite data of the sea in that area, water currents, temperature, plankton growth, which enabled him to identify potential fishing sites. The longitude and latitude details of these sites are sent by simple text messages to fishermen out at sea. The benefits of this project to the community are manifold. The life of the fisherman is made much easier. He does not have to burn excess fuel in search of fish. This also has positive implications for the environment. From a social point of view, the fisherman now has more time to spend ashore with his family, having saved on several hours that would have been spent in sea harvesting fish. A project with a wider impact and a very significant in the context of countries like Sri Lanka is a paperless hospital, an e-hospital. To understand the implications of this project, one has to appreciate the background from which it emanates. I'm proud to say that Sri Lanka can boast of having one of the best healthcare systems in the region, which is free to all citizens. Education has been free here as far back as from 1945. Health has always been free. In fact, according to UNICEF, Sri Lanka's experience is among the most compelling in achieving MDG indicators for child and maternal health and access to primary health care in all of South Asia. However, the system is such that a citizen finds himself spending a considerable amount of waiting time at these healthcare institutions. He would first queue up to be registered with a normal form, and queue up to see the doctor, and once again stand in queue for the prescribed medicines or tests. At this next visit, he has to repeat the process. The doctor who sees him has no easy access to his previous health records. I'm talking about a situation some years ago. Now we have hospitals like the one in a place called Dompe, which is a very close hamlet to Colombo. There we have deployed a complete hospital management system. Patients are issued a barcoded registration card. Only a one-time registration is required. Doctors have instant access to all previous records. Issue of drugs testing is made easy. Not only are the doctors able to make a more informed diagnosis, people are also benefited significantly. The average time a patient has to spend at the hospital is now down to 43 minutes from a previous 1 hour 55 minutes. Very significant decrease. It will very soon be possible to call into a system and book consultation time with the doctor. While the technology is hardly unique or innovative, the impact it has on the daily lives of ordinary people is very significant. From those who come from very developed countries, this is very simple. But for people like us, countries like Sri Lanka, countries which are struggling to come up in the technological ladder, this is extremely significant because it has great impact on the lives of our people. What is relevant here is that while this may be a basic run-of-the-mill solution in a developed country, as I said, from the perspective of Sri Lanka, it has a tremendous impact on our people. This then is the importance of having relevant content, not the latest or the most advanced, but that which is relevant to your country and to your people. We seem to be at a pivotal point in addressing inequalities of society. The smartphone, the most advanced computing device ever, is now paving the way for bridging that digital divide more effectively than before. Smartphone usage is growing even in countries like Sri Lanka. And unlike personal computers, smartphones are more likely to be used by the low-income groups. Given the ever-increasing rate of mobile penetration, in Sri Lanka it is well over 100%, the mobile promises to be a very effective way to reach remote communities and provide the content and services needed by them almost on a daily basis. Governments must also focus on delivering services needed by the citizen via the mobile. With the advent of the smart mobile devices, we are well placed to minimize what we have been calling all the time the digital gap. In conclusion, it must be said that the ICT agency, in the spirit of entrepreneurship, worked over the last 10 years on most crucial and impactful pillars of ICT development in Sri Lanka. I was very fortunate to have been one of its founding directors, and I know the philosophy which drives them, as Professor Rajapaksa very clearly said. Let credit be taken by others. We will only be proud of our achievements in our own minds. I think this is the hallmark of what ICTA has been doing all the time. Thank you very much, guys, for putting Sri Lanka on the map. Well, I shudder to think where it would have been in terms of ICT had not the ICTA been there. I therefore pay a handsome tribute to all those at ICTA who, despite many obstacles in its way, marched forward energized by the exemplary leadership given by His Excellency the President, whose advice was very clear. His advice has been to look at ICT development in terms of the local populace. What is best for our people, in particular the rural and other disadvantaged groups. It is my fervent wish that this August conference will provide more avenues to the content developers, particularly because we have some of the most innovative thinkers gathered from across the globe, and given the leadership of Professor Brook, I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting conference. The question uppermost in their minds, I'm referring to those experts who are here, should be, what can we do to make life better for our people? Particularly those who are at some disadvantage or the other by using the ICTs, how can we improve? That noble thought will drive you towards achieving what otherwise seemed impossible. Thank you very much and best of luck.
Remain on stage for a moment. Mr. Speaker, we would like you to remain on stage for a few moments because we have a very special token of appreciation to be presented to you. And to present the token of appreciation, we would like to very warmly invite Chairman of ICTA, Professor P.W. Rajapaksa, sir. Can we invite you? This is how ICTA would like to say a very big thank you to our chief guest and keynote speaker, Secretary to His Excellency the President, Mr. Lalit Veeratunga. Thank you, sir, for being present here this morning and sharing your insights and words of wisdom. Could you please put your hands together and His Excellency the President, our chief guest and keynote speaker.
Speak to you from the representative body, the ICTA. It's our pleasure in inviting the CEO, Mr. Reshant Devatunga.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to all of you. Mr. Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary to His Excellency the President, Professor Peter Brook, Chairman of WSA, Professor Rajapaksa, Chairman of ICTA Agency Sri Lanka, and distinguished invitees. Ladies and gentlemen, my speech is for between you. and the business end of the conference, so I will try and keep it short. The World Summit Awards as an entity has earned a great reputation as being a catalyst, as we heard, in promoting the creation of innovative digital content for the benefit of masses, as well as targeted beneficiary groups. Over the 10 years since its inception, it has been able to slowly but surely promote a huge e-content ecosystem across the globe. WSA began its existence in 2003 during the WSIS or WSIS events. Although we were part of the WSIS events both in Geneva in 2003 and in Tunis in 2005, Sri Lanka's interactions with WSA began only in 2009, where we got introduced to them through our involvement in the Mountain Awards, which is the South Asian Digital Content Awards, and we need to be thankful to the Digital Empowerment Foundation and Osama Manza, who is unfortunately not here for that. In such a short period, but in a very rich and fruitful partnership, which included winning WSA awards, we are honored and delighted to host these important WSA 2013 events here in Colombo. We hope this rewarding partnership with WSA will continue to the future as well. The ICT sector is a fast-moving, fast-growing sector throughout the world, and it's true more so in our region and true now more than ever. Countries look to leapfrog in development through the use of the newest cutting-edge technologies with the latest innovations in digital content and the adoption of the latest best practices. These developments make even more sense and have a greater impact, as it has the potential to change the landscape of service delivery and change the lives of ordinary citizens. Through our country's e-development agenda, many initiatives have been embarked upon, as you heard from our keynote speaker and also from Professor Anna Singer. And these have brought both tangible and intangible benefits to a broad segment of target groups. Opportunities have been created to use ICT for the betterment of masses, rural communities, the disadvantaged and the underprivileged groups. In addressing the needs of these groups and providing solutions to their demands, a new breed of local e-content developers have been spawned in the country, and it has given rise to a booming digital content ecosystem in Sri Lanka. The digital contents which are the rich fruits of the tree of technology. So as we continue to forge forward with these in this sector and this agenda, making it truly a citizen-centric effort, this WSA Congress will, I have seen this, will be discussing some innovative and timely topics such as the content economy, social entrepreneurship, mobile learning, teaching future ICT, among others. I think these are all priorities for all of us around the globe. And I think this event is a great opportunity to increase our knowledge, interact with each other, and learn and discuss with experts and peers how to forge ahead in this area. So I would like to very quickly conclude my speech by saying a few important thank yous, which I must do. A sincere thank you to His Excellency the President for not only being the chief guest and being present yesterday to ceremonially inaugurate WSA, but also for his continued leadership for the ICT agenda and his passion in taking benefits of ICT to rural Sri Lanka. A heartfelt appreciation to Mr. Lalit Veeratunga, Secretary to His Excellency the President, who with a vision to always relieve the burden of ordinary people has always been committed to our cause. Thank you, sir, for your inspiring speech. It's always been interesting and enlightening to listen to your keynotes on this subject. Many thank you to all our international and local speakers. We greatly appreciate you taking time to come to Sri Lanka, share your insights. I'm sure this will greatly enrich our discussions. A big thank you to all our partners, Sri Lanka Telecom, Microsoft, 3M and Intel, for joining this event, showing your commitment in the digital content space and also for your generous support. A very warm thank you to all our distinguished invitees, all the participants and all the award winners from around the globe, as well as Sri Lanka. We hope to have your fullest commitment and active involvement, as Peter mentioned, throughout the next 3 days. A sincere thank you to Peter and the WSA team for bringing these events to Sri Lanka. Our gratitude for giving us the opportunity through such a series of high-profile events to boost and provide further momentum in our development activities. And my final thank you is to the Chairman of ICTA, Board of ICTA, and the ICTA team who have come together again to showcase another top-notch event. Thank you for your unstinted commitment and support. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a packed and quality agenda ahead of us. I think very painstakingly put together by a dedicated team of people. So I wish that it will be a very productive and enriching 3 days for all of us. Thank you very much.
Closing remarks and words of thanks, grateful thanks delivered by the Chief Executive Officer of ICTA, Mr. Roshan Devapura. Thank you sir, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's also recognize the ladies and gentlemen who have made this event very much possible. That is our sponsors. So please direct your attention.
One country, one voice.
We're for the food lover, the movie lover, the road tripper, and the music mentor. We're for the gamer, the fashion hunter, the page turner, and the single dad. We're for the socializer, the working mom, for Thomas and Tom, the tomboy and Tom. We're for the playmaker, the deals eater, twin brothers, and the all-nighters. So when we set out to make a smartphone, we didn't make one for all of us. We made one for each of us.
A couple of messages, ladies and gentlemen, and the WSA Global Congress definitely is a huge event, and this year happening in Sri Lanka, and this wouldn't have been possible if not for the valued generosity by our strategic partner, Sri Lanka's national telecommunication service provider, Sri Lanka Telecom, our strategic partner. Could you please put your hands together and show your appreciation to Sri Lanka Telecom, our strategic partner.
Let's not forget our valuable event partners, of course, Microsoft.
And also, knowledge partner 3M.
And the technology partner for the event, Intel. Ladies and gentlemen, our sponsors making the event possible and colorful. One more round of applause.
So with that, we come to the end of the official opening ceremony of the conference. And we'd like to once again wish you a very productive, enriched day ahead. And we now would like to bring to the notice of all stallholders outside who will be taking their position right now to kindly make their way to their respective stalls, and to the others, we would like all of you to enjoy the refreshments. And no sooner that area is ready, we'll be inviting you to enjoy the exhibition as well. So once again, a big thank you to our chief guest and all you distinguished invitees. Thank you very much, and wish you a very fine day ahead. Ayubowan, have a nice day.
Time for us to start this very interactive session that most of our speakers have brought forth this morning through their speeches. And of course, to do that, it's my pleasure to now invite the WSA chairman, Professor Dr. Peter A. Bruff, who's going to take over. So just like you were told before, introduce yourselves to your fellow mates. It's going to be an interactive day. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joanna. For all those of you who are confused by the schedule, we had already our refreshment break and our walk through the exhibition. So the idea is that the exhibition stalls are your way of walking around when we have a break, and the idea is that when we have sessions, that you can join in here and enjoy the air conditioning. We have as a topic for this morning basically two different kind of aspects of the development of digital society. One is the economy side of it, and we will look at especially facts, the business and the employment in the e-content economy. And the second thing is that we are looking at the digital society development in terms of women and what it means actually not just to be empowered by technology, but actually to developing very good content on that side. In order to make this session and this entire conference a little bit more interactive, we have created content trees. Can I have the content tree, please? And on your sheets, on your tables, you have little sheets where there are questions posed to you. What partnerships enable success in content? What are key drivers for the content economy? Name the most impressive women in ICT. How can operators make local content profitable? How can women take more power in ICT? How to measure good content? So the idea is that you use your ability to help the economy of our sponsor 3M and put stickers on the content tree over there, here in the back, on the side, so that you can share your insight, and then we will accumulate this and edit it and then post it also on Twitter and on the networks. So there will be a cycle of insight and commentary. It's my pleasure this morning to welcome two people here onto the stage for the short talks. They are both members of the World Summit Board of Directors. And the first speaker will be Ralph Simon, and the second one will be Elizabeth Quat. Can I ask the two of you to come and join here on the stage? And then we will have people who will respond and give their own short talks. And there is Todd Ashton, the president of Ericsson in Malaysia and Sri Lanka. Todd, thank you for joining us here. Come and sit here on the stage as well so that we see. And then we have Kititi Pereira, who is the Chief Enterprise and Wholesale Officer of Sri Lanka Telecom. Do you want to join us here on the stage as well, please? And then we have Imran Bilkasim. He's the country manager of Microsoft here in Sri Lanka. Please come and join us here as well. Now, the idea of the short talks is to be provocative, insightful, and also future-oriented, and that is all which we expect from Ralph Simon. Ralph, you can speak from wherever you want.
Are you on? Come on! Are you dead? Who's dead here? Okay. Mohammed Stuti, thank you very much. Okay. Hariapi Yamu Ogoro Lestida. Come on, guys. Okay. I'm going to take you through a very quick presentation. Was the clicker working? Okay. And I'm going to show you some examples of some very interesting new innovations that I think will be interesting for you to look at, because we're going to talk about innovation and what helps make and change innovation. So what are the key trends that are going to be seen in 2014? And for you here in Sri Lanka, very, very important in terms of what might be interesting ideas. But before we begin, one question. How many of you here in this audience are screenagers? Ki denek metana tiraya balana ayada screenager. Mama kiyane tiraya balana ayanetua. Taruna ayaneme den mata kiyana. Ki denek inawadu metena tiraya balana aya screenager. Who is a screenager? How many are screenagers? That's all? That's impossible. Who looks at a mobile phone and a tablet and a TV at the same time? That's right, we are all screenagers. Okay, so screenagers. Let's go and let's take a look here at. Just let me get myself organized. Right. So first of all, I start with some innovation. Look at this interesting product just been invented. When you get very tired working at your computer, an ostrich pillow, someone innovated that, very interesting. You can sleep while you work, very interesting, particularly if you're a geek or you're working hard in Sri Lanka in coming up with new products. Now, very important trend for coming up is wearable technology. Technology that you wear. How many of you know about the Nike Fitbit you wear on your wrist? There's a lady there, Janine, you wear one. Have you got one on your hand? Very good. And in fact, this is something that I know that someone like Sanat Jayasuriya will be wear when he's on the cricket field. But wearable technology of things inside your clothes, very important. Here's a tennis racket that's got a special technology inside it, so you can analyze the shots when you're playing tennis. So very important for sports people. Particularly maybe someone like Kumara Sangakkara, when he's not playing cricket, he can be playing tennis. And with that, here's something very interesting, smart watches that allow you to check your emails and your SMS at any time, very interesting product. Something quite interesting. Here is a smartwatch that monitors your biometric data. Your blood pressure, your vital signs, very important not just for elderly people, but young people who want to see that they are fit. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't tell you the latest gossip. Monada alut toraturu Lankawe. What is the latest gossip? Well, we will show you what the latest gossip is. Here's some more wearables. Look at these Adidas that have got special concept shoes that display social media on your sneakers. You will see the messages, your email. While you're running, you can stop. See if you've got a message from your girlfriend or your wife, or both. You never know. Okay, speak for myself, you're right. I won't do that. Okay, now here's something interesting. A young fellow, 25 years old, from Los Angeles, came up with an interesting idea, and the idea was post a photograph on Facebook, and in 10 seconds the photograph will disappear. Now, is that a business or is that not a business? What a stupid idea. Well, it's such a stupid idea that the company called Snapchat, which allows your photographs to disappear in 10 seconds, is now worth $600 million. He's 25. He created the company 18 months ago in LA. It's now probably going to be taken over by Google. But the reason I'm showing you this about Snapchat, here in Sri Lanka, there's no more a problem about coming from Sri Lanka and not from Silicon Valley, because you can create something like Snapchat. It's an idea. Photographs disappear in 10 seconds. Who would think that that could be a business? But this guy who created it in LA is going to become very wealthy by coming up with this idea. Here's another one, an interesting one for those that can't go to a library. This is a project in Austria. Peter, I wanted to show you that in Austria, it's not just Salzburg, but also Klagenfurt. Not bad. Okay, and it's a project that allows people to get a virtual library from the library, and you're going to see a lot more of this, particularly with digital reading books like the Kindle and so forth, an important product. Here's an interesting one. Those of you who are in the audience that design headphones, I met a gentleman last night from Cape Town, South Africa, who was one of the winners, who actually designed some headphones, right, Ayan? You did? Well, here's a set of headphones that when you're listening to music, it transmits to your social media friends what you're listening to and will be on their social media site. Interesting idea, interesting product, and something that I think is quite interesting. In fact, I'm sure that well-known artists here in Sri Lanka, like Santosh and Bhatia, anyone know their music? Santosh and Bhatia? Nobody? Are you dead or are you alive? Okay, very good. You know who they are. Excellent. Here's an interesting thing, because this is one of the most important future developments of innovation. How many of you have heard of 3D printing? How many of you have got a 3D printer? Nobody. Professor, do you have a 3D printer in Austria?
No, I have used the pen.
Well, the reason I make this point about 3D printing, this picture you see, those two guitars, not the neck of the guitar, but the white body of the guitar was made on a 3D printer. 3D printing can print a prototype design and make it now in over 100 different kinds of materials, in metal, in fabric, in plastic. So you can now go to, in the United States, UPS, which is like FedEx or DHL. You can go in with a computer design from your computer on a memory stick, put it in a 3D printer at UPS, and it will print a product for you. So let's say you invent something. Let's say you're a doctor and you want to make a particular vertebrae to put inside someone's back. You can get that printed on a 3D printer with special titanium material. And the reason that 3D printing is so important, if you remember what a dot matrix printer was many years ago, my grandfather used to tell me about them. But if you remember, yeah, of course, a dot matrix printer today, it's 3D printing that is going to be absolutely essential. And I guarantee you one thing, in the next 5 to 7 years, every one of you sitting in this hall will have a 3D printer next to your computer. Very important. So 3D printing, you can print anything. In fact, you can now print... How many of you saw a movie that had a character called Mini-Me? You know what a Mini-Me is? Well, you can actually print yourself on a 3D printer looking exactly like you, but a little you. Okay, here's an interesting thing with the way that vending machines are innovating. Here's a vending machine that shows you what calories you are using. And clearly this is something that is important. Maybe Melanie Fonseca needs to find out how many calories she has and when she's having something to drink. Don't you think so, Chatrangani? That's what people say about Melanie, right? Okay, here's an interesting one. This is Samsung, a self-assembly printer. You get a box, you get a printing tube, and you assemble the printer. It's a very easy, cheap way of getting a printer. Let's say, for example, you're up in the north in Tukomli and you want to get a printer but you can't get to a computer store. You can have this sent to you and then you can just put it together in just a few minutes. So very interesting. If you want to print a picture of Anarkali Akarsha, you have no problem whatsoever. Okay, here's an interesting one. In the UK, this is a female-focused charity, and it's an ad that can only be viewed by women. Now, how do you think that works? An ad that can only be viewed by women. Well, the reason for that is a great innovation that is coming, and it's important for all of you who are developers because this brings in facial recognition technology. Samsung have been very big on this particular area, and it's like the smart TVs that Samsung now have that can recognize your face or can recognize whether you're male or female. Now those that are in between, neither male nor female, there's still technology working on that. But in the meantime, facial recognition, a very, very important way of identification, which is a very important new area in innovation. Okay, here's an interesting one. Can you imagine if you have a milk jug that sends you an SMS when the milk has gone sour? It seems incredible, no? But it's true. It's a very interesting little piece of technology, but this is something that is going to be happening in appliances, machine talking to machine. So what you're having here is that the jug will talk to your phone, or your phone will talk to your phone can actually do many things now. Your phone can start a car, your phone can switch on the lights in your home. You're seeing a lot of control mechanisms between the phone and the consumer.
Yeah. One more minute.
One more minute. Okay, we'll go very quickly. People have seen Google Glass. Everyone knows what Google Glass is. That's going to change things. Ladies, if you want to get nails, there's now vending machines that sell new nails. You can go and get new nails every day. And, oh yes, this is an apartment block in Singapore. That's the 21st floor of an apartment block that's got a garage on your apartment. You can park right next to your apartment. Those men that love sleeping with cars rather than sleeping with their wives, this is the way to do it. Okay, just very quickly, Peter, everyone knows about one of the most successful companies in the world in mobile games from Finland. Anyone here from Finland? Yes, Terve, welcome. From Finland, very good. And this is driverless cars. Peter, we're almost finished. Driverless cars are going to be very important, particularly, could be a good idea here in the middle of Colombo. Can you imagine if we could ban all cars and just have driverless cars? Final, last couple of slides. If you are an innovator, look at what someone did by getting a cell phone function with a single AA battery. Very important. A new way of bringing something to rural communities, cheap, interesting innovation. And finally, here is an interesting thing for what they call the bottom of the pyramid, for the lowest economic groups, with feature phones where you can basically just change SIM cards of a dual SIM card phone just with a quick shake. So, there we have it. And I'd like to just finish with a little bit in Sinhalese, just to say, Lankawe minisunta harima lasana adahas tiyenawa harima nirmana shili. So, Ogalanta karana pulawan api patan gamu.
I want to know what kind of accent he's using. The real problem with Ralph Simon is that he wrecks any kind of conference, because his talk should have been about innovation of content, and he was giving a talk on innovation of smart things. So, that is very thoughtful of you, but thought-provoking. What does it mean? When you have silly things like having vending machines for your new nails, at least for men it looks silly, or if you have something like Snapchat, which is a hyper-temporary way of posting something, a picture on your social media, then you can see that actually the boundaries of what makes sense are being transgressed by what innovation can do. Now, the silly side of things is that you have products like this and then we can laugh about it, but the serious side of it is that we are entering an age of exploration of what we can do with the technology. And then what Ralph actually, and I think this is something very important, is that there are mechanisms of weeding it out. Just talk 2 sentences on these mechanisms of weeding things out, would you? In terms of something becoming a commercial success, something being adopted, and something actually scaling.
One of the best guidelines for innovators when you are trying to think of a new product or something that you think, that you believe really can have an impact is, what do people need? What do people use? When I showed you the slide of the jug, the milk jug that can tell someone if the milk has gone off, maybe there is a need for that. Similarly, if you just examine what might be a need in Colombo, if you're in Colombo, you might just think of some need. Then the big thing is to be able to bring in what is called ideation, the idea becoming real. And then clearly you need some funding if you can do it. Without funding, that's also important. But the big key is, and a question that many innovators ask is, how do people get to hear about what we do? And when you look at Snapchat, just as an example, this young fellow from Los Angeles just was watching what his friends were doing on Facebook. And a couple of his friends had sent photographs that they didn't want their parents to see. And that gave him the idea to say, Snapchat, the photograph will disappear. And that all of a sudden with his friends started off a viral interest in that. And that spawned new innovation. So this weeding and seeding, obviously, if you can spread something, a product that's got value on the web, then people will pick up on it.
Thank you, Ralph. Elizabeth, do you want to comment on what Ralph has said in terms of also the weeding out of innovation? Or do you want to move on to your talk? Okay, take the microphone and then pass it on maybe to Todd, and I will ask everybody of you also this kind of question. In terms of weeding out innovation and what is actually the mechanisms by which things become sustainable. Use the microphone.
Yeah, that's a good idea. No, I think it's about, like you said, maybe finding a particular group of people who get benefit out of this innovation. It can be things, it's not about if it's a smart idea or what seems to be a stupid idea, it's about solving a human need. And I think that's one big part. The other big thing, which I'll talk about in my speech, is as fast as all these innovations are going, it will never go slower than it goes today.
Okay. Kitty, do you want to comment on that?
Well, can you please repeat the question again? The question again
is, we saw a lot of innovations which some look silly, some look superfluous, some are more meaningful, and some are very, very trivial. What's the mechanism by which things weed out in terms of them becoming sustained success for the, let's say, content economy?
Well, we need to look at the human aspect of that, whether these things are affordable to people and whether they have a real need. But we should not forget the fact that about 10-15 years ago, nobody knew about the Facebook and the stuff like that. So the content is a strong driver which can create need as well. So, but very innovative products, we have seen very useful stuff. In fact, the forum here is quite happy to see very useful stuff. Depending on the need and the commercial aspects of that, I think probably people will take it.
Imran, thoughts from you?
The first impression I had when you displayed that application was, why would someone want to take a picture and make it disappear in 10 seconds? So the way I thought about it after that was, every little feature that has always been created by someone is addressing a need, and there is an audience. Maybe there was a group of audience who was very vociferous about that need. There's another audience who may not be as vociferous, but still has a need. So as long as there is a need and there is an audience, I think most of these products will be very successful. I think if you look at the example of the mobile phone, the low-cost mobile phone, that's a great idea for driving rural empowerment in terms of also including digital content as a way of empowering the rural. So I think as long as there's a need and there is an audience, most of these things will fly.
Thank you very much. This is a good transition to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, please.
Yes, to respond to your questions, I think for business, we always say that when there is problem, there's opportunity. But as days change in the digital world, I think people may not know what they need. We create opportunity by ourselves. So you have from Angry Birds say whenever that is fun, whenever that is interesting, there's opportunity.
Okay, but let's then stick with the thought of need. One of the things which we all need is a safe environment, a sustainable environment, and what we need is actually technology which goes green. And I think this is the topic of your talk, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Please go ahead. The topic is then innovation in green ICT. Please,
Thank
Elizabeth.
you, Peters. I think I will stay here because the stage is too tall for me. I will be here and back. So,
can everybody hear Elizabeth?
Can everybody hear me? No?
No.
How about this? Okay, so I just need to be. So thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Yesterday I had a great opportunity to share with you about culture, preservation, and promotion through internet and e-content. Today I want to start with another perspective. While we are talking about how we can create more business through ICT, and thank you for a rather interesting presentation. We see more and more software, more and more apps, more and more devices are coming up. So I want to talk about what we are doing and how our industry can contribute to sustainable development. Let me try this. So I know you may all have these figures in your hand about technology changed our life. So this page of PowerPoint just to remind us every day we have tons of emails, website, videos, photos, voice call through our computer, laptop, iPad, iPhone, any device. So we are creating something. We are using it every day or even every minute. While I'm talking, I'm seeing you are still, tapping on your iPad or iPhone. So you are sending something out or receiving something. Technology is already part of our life. We all believe that. In Hong Kong, we can see that we have a mobile subscriber over 233%. That means each of Hong Kong citizens, we have over 2 devices on hand. And daily mobile internet access rate is 96%. It's the highest in Asia Pacific regions. So what happened is, when all of us are using a lot of devices, they are using the products you have developed, we are using energy. So global ICT energy consumption in 2012, 2022, and 2003 all are predicted to be doubled and tripled. So to offset what we are creating, the carbon footprint, we have to plant 6 billion trees every year to offset it. Are we going to plant that trees? I don't think so. So let's think again what we are doing here. We all believe that we are doing something good for the community. We are bettering the world. We are making a difference. So ICT advancements should be making changes to the world, but are those changes made for better or for worse? Are we doing something good for the world, or are we creating devil or evil? So ICT footprints from the report of ITU, part of it comes from personal computer monitors, 23% come from data center, and 24% come from fixed and mobile communications. The number is increasing every day. So can we make a difference by protecting our environment? Can we make a difference by building more green in our device, in our data center, in our product, in your solution, in your apps or applications? Can we do it? Managing ICT operation to optimize energy and resource consumption, I think we can do it, if you care. Developing ICT solution to simplify process and limit the use of physical materials. If we don't ever think about it in our creative process, we will never do it. And if we really care about our environment and we want to make a difference by using green ICT, then we maybe effectively can lower the carbon emissions by over 5 times of its own footprint and 15% of global footprint by 2020. Some reports said that what we created through ICT for like business environment, less paper, less traveling, for example, using video conferencing, etc., etc. Actually, it's lower the carbon footprint for other business operation. But what we see is, even we have better controlling printer, or you have a computer, but in a lot of offices, the computer open 24 hours, never close, and then never shut down. And then we always talk about paperless office or paperless government, but actually it's not. People are still printing a lot of stuff. So if we are not working very hard on it, we are creating more carbon footprint but not less carbon footprint. So we can reduce carbon footprint through our design process, how we pick our raw material, how we conduct our production process, how we design our packaging, and even the selling cycle. This is one of the examples of data center energy use. PUE is power usage effectiveness. It's a way to calculate how effective you use your energy in your daily life, or especially in data center. In Hong Kong, we are promoting green data center at the moment. So what you can see is most of the data center are freezing, like this room. I'm freezing here. So most of the data center, if you go inside, is normally around 18 to 24 degrees Celsius. In Hong Kong, we are building new age data center that are pushing up to like 29 degrees Celsius. I heard some company or some data center around the world are working on even higher temperature data center. In the future, maybe you can do a sauna in data center instead of a freezing room. So with better control, we can use less energy by picking up the temperature. So what the Hong Kong government is doing is putting green ICT and sustainable development in the Digital 21 strategy, which I encourage all the governments to think about it. Especially we are now in Sri Lanka. This morning we heard about different government officials talking about the Sri Lanka plan. One thing is missing is about green. And I didn't heard about sustainable development or green planning in the plan. So I think it is important that all the government understand that in order to build a country, green strategy is also important. So about the government should thinking about audience and regulation to control all the purchasing and have paperless meetings, building green community through ICT, and also green data center strategy. What the government should do, learn from others. In Hong Kong, I think we are not leading. We are a little bit behind. Let me be frank. We are pushing the government to form relevant policy. Think about whenever they use ICT, whenever they are thinking about e-government, they should think about how can that be more green. There's 2 projects in Hong Kong that I'm working in the past few years. is to study what the Hong Kong environment and the awareness of green ICT in Hong Kong business sector and government sectors, and then promoting green ICT in Hong Kong. I founded Green ICT Consortium in 2009. And then we have successfully pushed the government putting green ICT into their strategy and to support NGOs in promoting ICT. Our slogan is, we use ICT to green and we add green to ICT. So to move forward, I know every one of you are thinking about the business side, how we can create something that make a difference, get impact, sell at a high price, making more money, make a fortune. But other than that, can we do something more for all the apps developers or content developers here? If you can think of anything that can add in your apps, in your software, in your solution, in anything, even just a little message that promote green or reduce carbon emission, that's help. For all the IT players here, you have a role to play and you have the power because you use data center. If you need a data center to be green, you can push your data center service provider to build green data center. For all the government representative here, this is your responsibility to lead, to build a green world with different aspects, including ICT. So when think about ICT strategy, don't only think about how to do a business. Think about what impact we are doing to the world and what we can do to save our planet. So I conclude by.
You created the Green ICT Consortium in Hong Kong. Are there members of content industry, creative industries in that consortium already?
Yes, I founded a consortium with 7 organizations. Consists of environmental protections, NGOs, as well as data center operators, content providers. So it's a group of people that are passionate in, in environmental protection.
Ericsson is traveling the world with the slogan of connecting everybody. How do you connect to the green issues which Elizabeth were talking about, and what do you see there as your role in the strategy, besides the messaging side and possibly the optimization of your own operations?
I think if we talk about our traditional business and look at my industry colleague next door, I mean, one of the big costs for our customers is, of course, energy costs to run the towers that you connect to and you speak on the phone. So I would say, and I think in maybe Sri Lanka, energy costs go up 25% year on year the past few years. So one big focus we have is coming up with designs for the networks in order to reduce the amount of electricity needed to run. That's leveraging both on-grid fuel, but off-grid fuel, leveraging solar, etc. So that's one big focus for the our traditional business. Then, of course, there's ways to leverage ICT technology for other industries that can reduce the carbon footprint. And I'll speak a little bit about that, but I mean, this is an extremely important thing for industry because it's important for the planet, but it's also a way, I think, for everyone to make the business sustainable.
For Sri Lankan Telecom, is it a viable thing to have solar-powered network operations?
Yes, in fact in some of our rural offices in particular, because when it comes to the headquarters where you have so many systems and platforms, which is quite challenging, but in remote offices where we have remote stations which consume little power compared to the head office, so these are the places we are going to start with. But at the same time, not only the solar, also we are looking at some other green concepts when it comes to our deployments, mainly the ICT infrastructure, and in multiple ways it's going to be benefit. One is by bringing down the operating cost, which in turn can be passed as a benefit to the customer, and also will help society to get down the carbon percentage which is emission from electricity generation. So those are the things that we are strongly looking at it, and in fact we have a separate team to look at these aspects as well.
I hope that you are not only looking at it, but that you take photographs of it, because then Ralph Simon can include them in his next talk on innovation, because that would be very good, because otherwise he has this kind of lunatic consumerist kind of gadgets here, you know, maybe green things. How about Microsoft? What is the next step in terms of having green tablets or green devices, or in which way does a company like you, who is on the software side and the operating system side, you know, think about that?
I think green is something that we build into our DNA for all our products. Any product that you consume from Microsoft, the green initiative is a DNA for our products. So even if you look at some of the products that are consumed by our customers and partners, the biggest issue we've seen is most of the time the resources are unutilized. Most of the time the resources are unutilized, but the servers or the systems are kept on 24 hours of the day. So we're coming up with initiatives in terms of really looking at usage and optimizing power based on the usage so that we reduce the carbon footprint. I think we're also working with providers like even Ericsson and also telecom companies in looking at scale. I think we as companies have scale in terms of being able to reduce carbon footprint by providing optimum solutions for customers using our infrastructure or our services in terms of really adding value to this space. So that's what we are doing as a company in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that topic of how to create a content economy, which is also a green economy, needs a lot of innovation. It needs a lot of thinking. It needs a lot of how you are working, battery life all the way, how to build infrastructures, and how to make actually things, again, more sustainable by making it local. Todd, you have a little bit of an input still for us. You want to...
Absolutely, and maybe if it's okay I can stand up, because I think I can't sit still.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I'll do as quick as I can. So, good morning, my name's Todd. Let's see if I figure out how this works. I come from a company called Ericsson, and Ericsson is not... Oh, we went very fast here. You might think of Ericsson as a company that does these kind of things, which is actually maybe what Microsoft does these days. That's not what we do. We're a business-to-business company, but you can't have a mobile phone without leveraging patents from Ericsson. I think in the context of my presentation today, we would like to see ourselves as a company that's enabling creativity and content. We're a business-to-business company. Present in 185 countries around the world, and with a lot of patents, and we do things both making mobile connectivity work, but also things like compressing video for podcasters. So that's about Ericsson. Today I want to talk a little bit about the unbelievable explosion that we see happening in the ICT industry. So during next year, there will be more mobile subscriptions than people on the planet. And by 2018, there's going to be more than 9 billion subscriptions. And if we look at smartphones, which was the subject earlier this morning, it took 5 years from 2007 to 2012 to reach the first billion smartphones. But now it will only take 2 years to reach the next 2 billion. And by 2018, there'll be more than 3 billion and more than 6 billion mobile broadband subscriptions. It's just incredible. And we think that by 2020 there will be 50 billion connected places, people, and things. I think we saw some examples in the presentations earlier. And just to put it in context what that can mean in terms of growth. So all the amazing things we saw during the first presentation, applications like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., they're all the products of what so far has been an unprecedented technology development when you talk about mobility, broadband, in the cloud. But it's also never gone slower. So as we look forward, we're at our slowest point now. So the amount of innovation that will come out of the industry, out of ICT, is, I think, mind-boggling. And it, of course, creates opportunities for empowerment and also business opportunities. So for example, 40% of all traffic that goes through a tablet, 25% in a smartphone, that's video. That's families and friends communicating. But also, you have platforms like Refugees United, who have connected 200,000 refugees in war-torn countries to get back in touch with their families. That's enabled by ICT technology. And of course, there's business opportunity. Now it's possible for $10 a month to get 20 million songs streamed to your phone, which can completely change the media industry. And so all of these changes, this development, this is what we call at Ericsson a network society, which is where all things that can benefit from being connected will be connected. And if we stop and think then, what could this mean in Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka has gone through incredible growth the past few years, but still there's an incredible opportunity to connect the rural society. And we know that by increasing the connections from what is today 45% to 10%, that will increase GDP by 1%. If we can double the speeds by which people can connect, that will increase GDP by another 0.3%. And that's just to create connectivity, to start creating applications, not just in the English language, but of course in local language, to create content, not just in English, but in local content that's relevant for Sri Lankans. Connecting schools, giving them access to the latest material when it comes to education. But of course, it won't just be about Sri Lanka as a country, it's going to be about industries in Sri Lanka and around the world. The first example I could give is the energy industry. So what we see now is a lot of energy utilities deploying ICT solutions for smart grids and smart meters in order to really optimize the amount of electricity usage that goes to every household. This is being done in places like Estonia and Australia. So to further answer the question, we talked about green ICT. These are the things, that technologies that are being developed that will enable. Second thing, transport industry, which I think could be very important for Sri Lanka. See companies like Maersk, which is one of the biggest shipping companies in the world, mobilizing their cargo business, reducing their footprint by optimizing their routes over the ocean, leveraging mobile technology. And that's saving, for example, 5% on a trip from Singapore to Denmark, which is enough to power 600 households in Sweden electricity for 1 year. We see in the security area, leveraging mobile technology, broadband in the cloud, to use that to protect critical infrastructure like ports, stadiums, to make them safer for all of us to take part in. And then finally in telecom, it's been very much a business about SMS, which has been extremely important. We heard the example this morning, creating an impromptu market for fish, for people who trade in fish, to find out what the best market to go to is to trade in. But that business is changing so much. It's going from SMS and voice to be about data, how I create my own experience, and also how it can be leveraged for other industries. And I think we see an incredible change. I think we'll probably hear more about that later. So this is what we see as the network society. And if you think anything that I said was interesting, I really encourage you to join the conversation. We will come with our ideas, and if you bring yours, I think together we can develop the network society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This room is full of people who are producing content. When you say you can download 20 million songs for $10, that sounds very, very good for the consumer. But how does a producer, an artist, still make a living if he or she is just one of 20 million, and then you divide $10 US by 20 million? I think it wouldn't take the chairman of ICTA, who is a mathematician, to figure this one out. But then you have to multiply it with how many times you need to create a new song in order to buy one loaf of bread.
So that's a very good question. I think, I may not get the numbers exactly right, but the media industry, let's say 6 years ago, was about $380 billion US. And it's probably the industry that's first been transformed so much by ICT technology. And of course you could say it's damaged lots of value because things have changed. But what's happened is the value chain has changed so much. So the way the media delivered is different. But the value of the industry is now higher than 380 million. Now it's up towards 400 billion. So it's also about embracing new ways of leveraging the things we want to produce so that actually people do get paid. But maybe it's about creating new alliances, new ways to leverage the value chain, new ways to get money to people. So I think change is human, always difficult to accept. But I think if we can embrace it, then we can create a better place and create value for the industries.
Okay, these are very nice thoughts. Let's look at an industry which hurts the most, which is the telco industry. Pass on the microphone to Sri Lanka Telecom. How do you feel about what Todd is saying? Because he's saying in very nice words that the over the pie is developing, but you are an industry which is being cut out of the revenue, because on the one hand you have the over-the-top companies like Facebook, Google, and creating global value by global reach, but you're stuck with the investment for rolling out the infrastructure to rural Sri Lanka. How are you getting out of this kind of squeeze?
Very correct. I agree with you. So if you really look at this triangle, where the top investments are coming at the bottom, where the telcos, keep on investing on the investment because that is the biggest part. And but this triangle is turned over the other way when it comes to the OTT players. So they make money. So they really leverage on the infrastructure which we develop. And so this is the very reason now telcos are really required to transform into a different space. And in a while I'm going to talk about that in the context of cloud computing. So I think that will probably give you a better answer through that presentation.
Okay. I think that you're squeezed out as much as the content producers are squeezed out. If you look at the traditional media industry, you have countries in the world where the publishers of newspapers assemble to take companies like Google to court for using their content in order to make money. So we have this kind of rearrangement, and this is what we talk about, this kind of fluidity of the business models, and we have to see how it's working. Any thoughts from Microsoft on this, and your future of being squeezed out of business yourself?
No, I think we see this as an opportunity. I think Microsoft as a company has also transformed itself. We are no longer a traditional software company. We classify ourselves as a services company. We repackage software and deliver it using different mechanisms. I think the kind of things you do is a perfect opportunity for us to partner in looking at new innovative challenges in the way we make software available for our consumers. I think it gives us a great opportunity to commoditize the usage of software to the entire planet, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to partner with people like Ericsson in making that happen. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Okay, by buying Nokia, is this the way in which you want to create a service company?
Sorry.
By buying Nokia, do you want to tell us that this is the way of buying a service company?
So I missed out the second part. So Microsoft is transforming as a services and a devices company. So Nokia is a part of it as well.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a larger input which you want to share with us on the Sri Lanka Telecom? Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Well, so I'm here basically to share some of the developments that we badly need in this country. And being the national service provider, so we have some initiatives to support the young talents and some of the smart organizations being innovative content developers. It's a kind of it's a platform for all of you, where you can very closely engage and develop your content very creatively. So we are going to be a facilitator in this whole context. So let me go through first some of the fundamentals of this cloud computing, where we are planning to in fact offer the infrastructure as a service, the computing, storage, and basically the hardware in the context of cloud computing. And then software as a service, software as a service, what it is, I don't know, take much time to go through. But the focus here today is platform as a service. So this is for content developers. So the applications are developed based on the platform, so that is going to be the ideal framework for smart content developers. So the cloud platform, unlike the on-premise platform, is going to be very flexible, and it's going to be very productive for you all, and also it scales in the economics as well as resource point of view as well. So if you really look at the control over these platforms, if you really compare that with the traditional on-premise based platforms where you have the total control. But you will realize when you really go through this slide, the platforms, what is being offered through cloud is more like standardized. It scales, it's fast to deploy, and time to market is very high. But on the other hand, it's expensive. So the developers need to think about it, and so there's a little bit of control for you also when it comes to some of these the applications and data layers. But you can really leverage on other areas and use kind of a standard platform to move forward. And let's look at the PaaS adoption among the pioneers. So there is also kind of a survey done by IBM, and some of the respondents are classified, and they can be broadly categorized into experimenters, pioneers, observers, and preparers. And if you really look at the pioneers, what they believe is basically are considered as the people who adopted cloud, and 16%. And they are the masters in the development space as well. So experimenters, in fact, they start using it, but kind of a pragmatic approach in moving forward. So in the future, they are ready to walk into the category of pioneers. So preparers, they think about it and preparing to act. In the meantime, we can see the other category, the observers largely, they keep on watching what others are doing. So some results on the same survey, you can see the response of pioneers. So look at it, the benefits of PaaS. So when you really look at the top part of it, which are more advanced benefits compared to the bottom, which are mostly on the resiliency, availability, and things like that. But if you compare the answers or the response of pioneers against the rest of respondents, you can see they are strongly adopting into this concept, the cloud platform. And developers by different categories, again the rapid developers, they are the developers who prefer to code, not to code, but rather rely on or value graphical automated tools for creating applications. When it comes to coders, they are really focusing on perfecting applications and not to be bothered with the infrastructure and the stuff. But the others, the programmers who not only write applications but also need to configure the platform that supports their code as well. So the most critical factor here in selecting the right platform is the developers. The developers, they know what they really need. And the successful adoption also depends on their skills and competencies. And one more thing, when you really look at PaaS as the platform for your development, that can come with the IaaS, the infrastructure, because some of these developers believe that the underlying hardware, the servers, web servers, databases are going to be critical for their development. So in a situation like that, so they can certainly host in a mix where you can really bundle the pairs with IS. Thereby you have a better control in the development environment. Yep. So pairs market forecast, to be frank with you, this is not a big market for a telco like us. So we rather prefer to introduce other cloud services like IS and SaaS. But what we thought is, again, as the national service provider, we need to encourage the creative content developers, and we need to have a single data repository to have your content hosted. And if you really look at the revenue also, this is only 1% of total cloud revenue. So the income that is being forecasted, even though it is going to be many times in 2016, if you really look at the mixing different services in pairs, it's not going to change greatly. So what you should do, and you can prioritize and pilot. So start with the pilot project. So the deploy to select a cloud provider and choose an existing platform which more suit for the cloud environment, and then you can slowly transform the applications delivery, where you can assess the current application environment which you have with you, and look at the scalability objectives, business innovation, and then use the knowledge to build the strategic roadmap where you can progressively migrate your applications into the PaaS environment. And then you can really harvest on expertise where the capture and leverage the knowledge to unblock some of the power of PaaS to improve the way applications are being created, and work continuously to identify practices, expertise, and patterns, most importantly. So those are very specific things, advantages that you can really improve the cloud. And the journey to a platform as a service, so you can look at the security aspects, the KPIs, the performance, and depending on that you can move forward. And since time is limited, I am not going to explain much on this. So the architecture that we are thinking of, which will be ready in 2 to 3 months' time, a kind of a development architecture which will be available to all these the creative developers, and you are mostly welcome. And just to touch on some of the green concepts, so I think having a single platform which we can share, also in a way we can contribute to save some of the green, we can really take care of some of the green aspects as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. When Sri Lanka Telecom thinks itself and transforms itself also into a cloud service provider, you were saying very, I think, forward-looking and visionary that you are not just offering infrastructure as a service, not just software as a service, but platform as a service. Who are the partners you're looking for on this journey, and what are the economics? Because one of the things in which, when we look at the transformation of the business, which Todd was talking about, some of the green issues, which Elizabeth was talking about, the innovation issues, which Ralph talked about, they are all driven by the fact that through Moore's law, we have actually this kind of kicking off the economic cost area and turning it around, because as things become more powerful, at the same time they become cheaper. Now, for you to argue, and that I think the argument would be very good, in which way the software as a service is extended by platform as a service, what is actually the business deal in terms of cost which you're offering to the content producers?
We need to look at it, so I'm not ready to talk of the commercials in numbers, but definitely we can look at a very attractive proposition to our developers. In the sense, what we're trying to establish is a very open architecture. So when you really look at, ask the question about the partners, so the platform is ready to partner with anybody. If you really look at the top part of it, where any software service provider can bring in their content and integrate it through open APIs, which we can sell it to our customers. That is one aspect. And at the bottom of that, again, any hardware platform again can be integrated to offer in the space of IaaS, the infrastructure as a service. So the cloud layer remains, because through a single portal we need to make it unified to all the customers. But the user experience, whether we have multiple platforms at the bottom in the IaaS space, or multiple app providers integrated at the top of the platform, the user should see all these things through the unified platform. And again, we are also planning to establish a brokering layer, which in turn can talk to other cloud providers and integrate onto the same portal, which the customers are going to see, it in a unified platform.
Yeah, I think that there's, I don't know how much jungle you have in Sri Lanka in terms of, the country and the geographic thing, but I see that there's a jungle still ahead of us in terms of that road. Right? If I turn to you, Imran, at Microsoft, if one looks back over the last 20 years of success, you have been an application provider to the extent of creating a monopoly in terms of operating systems for desktop computing. How do you feel about being squeezed out now with that kind of, let's say, business model which telco has developed or is developing?
I think when we kind of launched our own cloud-based services, own software as a service components, it was a huge learning for us in terms of how do we commercialize this to the market and how do we as a company still remain profitable. Now in Sri Lanka we launched Microsoft-based cloud services about a year ago. And it was interesting to see the amount of adoption by some of our local companies. The level of sophistication in which they are using cloud-based services is actually one of the best in the region. Microsoft Sri Lanka was actually one of the best countries in Asia Pacific in terms of adoption of cloud technology. And one of the,
Please give us 3 examples of successful adoption of cloud services here in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I think if you take the #1 conglomerate in the country, it's Hughes Holdings. That was one of our early adopters of cloud technology. The entire group across many different locations is on cloud technology. They moved from on-premise based technology. Now they are seeing great efficiencies, greater economies of scale in terms of adopting technology and while concentrating on their core business. And we've also had other corporates like Hemas, Expo Lanka, all big top-notch corporates. And we've also had some of the SME companies. And now that's an interesting thing. Earlier, best and the greatest of technology could only be afforded by the top companies who are cash-rich. Today with cloud technology, you could also have a small company using world-class technology just like a top company. That's what I see as one of the major benefits of cloud.
Elizabeth, you want to comment on this?
I think for all the companies that offer cloud services, should consider adding, green as one of your competitive advantage and your selling point. Because for all the big corporations, most of the big corporations around the world, multinational company, they have green procurement agenda, right? So whenever they choose service provider, green element is one of the marks that they will consider which company they are going to choose. And more green and lower carbon emission, lower energy consumption mean lesser cost as well. So this is why we are promoting green data center, because cloud computing is all reliant on big data and data center. So if your data center becomes the first green data center in Sri Lanka or in the region, I think that is a great, huge competitive advantage for promoting cloud services to big corporations or small, medium enterprises.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Do you want to comment on this now?
I think you're very right. I think if you look at some of the data centers we built the world over, in the US, in Asia, I think some of these principles that you spoke of are part and parcel of the infrastructure that we built, highly optimized, reduce carbon footprint, fully. So they are one good point. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank the panel for this. I want to thank the speakers. Let's give a hand to Ralph Simon for his talk on innovation. Elizabeth Pratt on green. Todd Ashton on the network society. Titi Pereira for talking about cloud computing. And also Imran Qasim for his talk and his contributions regarding where Microsoft is seeing itself in the near future. Thank you very much, the five of you. Without any further we switch to the other half of the world, which is women's view of things.
Professor Buck. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed on to the next session, we'd like to have an exchange of tokens of appreciation. Firstly, of course, between two of our very key people here today. If I could have Professor Dr. Peter A. Brock back on stage, and I'd also like to invite CEO ICTA, Reshad Devapura, to please join us. We'd like them to have a small exchange, token of appreciation between, of course, the host, ICTA, and our wonderful guest here, WSA. So here's a little friendly exchange, ladies and gentlemen, and also a little break for you till we go to the next session. A round of applause.
I have not seen myself tonight.
Thank you very much, Professor Brock. Reshad, if you could do us the honors of giving out a small token of appreciation to our wonderful panel of speakers who have just concluded. I'd like to start by inviting Ralph Simon, CEO of Mobilium International, to receive his token of appreciation from Reshad. Honorable Elizabeth Kwok, Member of Legislative Council, Hong Kong. Thank you, Madam, for your input. Mr. Todd Ashton, President Ericsson Malaysia, Sri Lanka. Mr. Kirti Pereira, Chief Enterprise and Wholesale Officer, Sri Lanka Telecom, also being a strategic partner. And let's not forget our event partners, the Country Manager Microsoft Sri Lanka, Mr. Imran Dilhasi. Once again, thank you to the speakers, thank you Mr. Devapura, and now ladies and gentlemen, you
piece of instant acknowledgement, because the pictures which we get here are taken right now and played back instantly, so that is really something wonderful. Thank you very much, Ika, for doing this kind of innovative side. We are coming to the second part of this morning, and that is the women's view on the content development, on ICT development, and we have two people giving short talks. One is Dorothy Gordon from the Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT from Ghana. Dorothy, you want to come and join me here, please? Is Dorothy already here? She is behind me, which is a good thing. And then we have Jenny Warner, who is coming to us from the United States, and she is Create a Digital Family. I think this is a company and organization, but she is one of the world's leading people in terms of content design. Then we have Engineer Manar El-Hashash, Secretary General of the Kuwait Award, and I would ask Manar also to join us here. Then we have Ifat El-Shukri. She is the Technical Director of Women Business Development Center in Egypt and long time advisor to the Ministry of Communication, Information Technology. And then we have the one and only Sheikh Akrameh Mubarak, Senior Program Head of ICTA. Now that I have learned how to pronounce your name, I can even do it in public. Okay, we want to time ourselves for no more than 45 minutes. We will do the two short talks in a sequence, and then we have a discussion on the stage. The topics will be set first by Dorothy Gordon. You have 10 minutes.
Don't worry, that's all I'm going to say. Well, it's good afternoon, everyone, and I just want to see by show of hands how many of you believe that women in ICT is an issue. Okay, very few of you. How many of you believe that really we have a level playing field when it comes to women and IT, and women are just lazy, and that's why they're not online, they're not coding? Be brave. Tell the truth. How many of you? This is a debate that we've been having all the time in the office at the Ghana India Kofi Annan Center of Excellence in ICT, where unfortunate serious geeks, and they're like, what's stopping them? It's a level playing field. If they want to come to class, they can come to class. If the internet is there, why aren't they there? It's because they prefer. And what do most men believe women do? Kitchen, gossip, fingernails. I mean, Ralph Simon, I don't think I will forgive you for that. So, I'm trying to coordinate. These are pictures of women just doing their daily business. You see somebody who's selling pineapples, walking on the street. She's on her mobile. She's doing business. We see young women who are in the classroom. We see old women who are benefiting from a special program to train them to get online. And I'm hoping that, Reshan, this is a common sight in Sri Lanka, that you have lots of special programs to get older people online, and especially women online. And then we have so many programs to train young girls, even in the universities. And what do we find? We find that women do not like to be in the same classroom with men. They feel oppressed. How many of you feel like oppressors? You're not feeling like oppressors. So let's talk a little bit about the business of all of this, because a lot of people believe that when we talk about women and IT, we are talking about it because we want to be good. We don't want to leave the women behind. And we see that in some countries, actually, it's totally not an issue. In some countries, there are more women online. And if we talk about a country like Sweden, for example, women are the ones who are driving the IT business. And you can see that they're making serious contributions to GDP. So all of you men who tend to the oppressor side, you have to ask yourselves, is there something fundamentally different about the women in our country, that they are not taking the lead when it comes to being online? Is it that the brains of the women in my country are different? Is it? Or is it that there are so many cultural factors that are coming into play? So let's look quickly at those graphs. You can see they're from a reliable source, the ITU. And then we look at it from the point of view of men and women, and you see the huge disparity between the so-called developed and developing countries. And so you have to ask yourself, again, why are we seeing that difference? And then what do women do online? I just put in this slide to remind people that what women do online is probably going to reflect quite a bit what women do offline. And then this is a very interesting slide from Ericsson, And it tells you that when women have smartphones, what they use smartphones for. And I want you to think, because the most important thing about this topic is that you should think, and when you see something, you should try and analyze why. And ask yourselves, the women that you know who have smartphones, are they using those smartphones to drive business? Are they making money off their smartphones? And especially for the telco representative, I'd like to know what is your special target? How are you tuning your program so that you can pull more women online and make more money off them? So, these are some examples of women who are doing great things online. I'm not going to read them out. Is there anybody here who is not literate? All literates, you can read this slide. But look at this slide. I love this slide. I love it because I think I really look like that lady. You know, sometimes you get up in the morning as a woman, especially when I had a young child who luckily now has completed university and I don't have to send off to school. You are multitasking as women. And this is actually very well researched. And it is actually linked to the brain function of men. Men who have weaker connections between their left and right brains and therefore are not able to multitask in the same way. And we have to ask ourselves, is ICT empowering women? And we know that it has the potential to do so. But these are some of the things that I really want you to focus on. The fact is that most women don't even know what's on the internet. They just don't understand why it's relevant. That's why we see the graph the way we did before. They don't know how to use the internet. They don't know how to read the language. If we look in our countries where English is a second language, we'll find more men have access to English than women. They don't even know whether it is allowable to access. And we see that in a lot of cultures, men do not want their women to get on the internet because they understand that it could be empowering. And at the same time, they also understand there are dangers on the net, and they feel it's their role to protect their women from those dangers. I believe we should protect women from danger by educating them on what to do to avoid it themselves. So those are sort of the ecosystem type of issues. And I want to focus on the last one, which is proactive public and private sector development, focus on capacity development. Let's look a little bit at Ghana. And we see that economically, women are picking it up. But I just want to focus on one thing. We find that a very important factor is getting mothers on board, getting older women on board. Because once they understand how it can impact young women's lives, they encourage their daughters to actually get online and get their businesses online. We already have several millionaires, women with millionaires, who have built online businesses. And these are some of the things that we need to do to get women on board. Now, I want to end by reminding us of some old debates. One of the old debates is whether or not women should be literate at all. And when it comes to the teaching profession, what we find is the higher the salary you get in teaching, the fewer women will be there. But at the fundamental level, at primary level, we usually see a lot of women. And all of you men who are nervous about women getting online and being part of the digital revolution and understanding how to bridge the content gap for women is so important. Just remember that your sons are going to be educated by women when it's in primary school. And if those women don't know enough about IT, your sons are going to be held back. Do you think that's a good argument? Persuade a few people. anyway. So I just looked at that, and I'm going back to our old arguments, looking at literacy. And you see, when it comes to literacy, we've really made a lot of progress. When it comes to IT, the issues are bigger than the technology. It's all of that prejudice that we see on a regular basis that is holding women back. And if we're not careful, it's going to actually accentuate some of the gains we've made today. Let me just end by saying that in real terms, for most of us as developing countries, the issue is how we grow our economies. And if we keep women offline, you can't do business and make business off them. They can't do business and grow your economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. I understand that you're in the fighting mode about the brain functions of men. Oh, it's research.
Yes.
Good. Very good.
Very well.
How about the argument that it has more to do with illiteracy and poverty rather than with the brain function? Is that not relevant?
I did say that literacy is an issue, access to devices, all of these are issues. But I think that we have men who are poor as well. We have men who are illiterate as well. And even there, we see there's a divide. And so we have to go into it and understand why we have that gap. And that gap really has a lot to do with culture. Women are constantly being told, this is not for you. As a girl, even those who are engineers, we have research showing that girls who have completed master's level engineering are told not to touch the computer when they are at home because somebody thinks they're going to break it, you know? So it's the absurdity of some of these belief systems that we have to overcome. And we can do it by really having concerted policies in this area and women-targeted programs to get them online and explain how they can translate from their offline business into the online world.
Thank you very much for this addition to your talk. We will go into this discussion afterwards, but we will switch now from your view regarding how actually the gendered use of ICT is being played out in society to a gender view of ICT in terms of content. And it's Janine Warner who I welcome to talk. Janine, please.
It is an extraordinary honor to share the stage with these beautiful, talented women. I want to talk a little bit about... Oh, see, there I am, my own blind spot, ignoring the token male on our panel. I am guilty of this. This is the current issue of Wired magazine, came out last week. This is a young woman named Colombo. She lives in Mexico. She's 12 years old. And she scored the highest score in math in the entire country. She is so impoverished, she lives next door to a dump where her father literally died from lung cancer from working. But Wired magazine recognized she could be the next Steve Jobs. And her incredibly inspiring, innovative teacher is the one who led her to really exploit her natural talent in math. I grew up in a very different place. I grew up in a progressive country with progressive parents, and nobody ever told me there was anything I couldn't do. I had a very different life, and I had to learn much later that other people might be obstacles to me. My mother had a different experience. She grew up in a world where girls were told to wear skirts and little ribbons in their hair. And she grew up to have children and a family as she was supposed to, but like many women of the 60s in my country, she rebelled against some of that. And when I was 10 years old and I told her that I wanted a Barbie doll for Christmas, she was horrified. Because Barbie dolls are bad for girls. This was my world. So when I was 10, my mother gave me for Christmas a toolbox. I did not appreciate at the time what a powerful gift it was. I have the luxury today that mostly other people take care of my home and fix things for me, but I am glad that I know how to use a toolbox and the problem-solving skills that my mother gave me. So you will find in many places in the world discussions about Barbie, and I've told this story so many times that last year my mother gave me a Barbie doll for Christmas. And if you want to reach women, you can have discussions about things like, should Barbie dolls be for girls? There's lots of content on these topics, but I am more fascinated by innovations like this one. Goldilocks is a new toy designed by a woman engineer, a graduate of Stanford University, who thought that girls should have toys that appealed to girls and inspired creative thinking. And she's doing so well, she's created another one where you can design your own float for a braid. So in my mind, if you want to reach women, look for content about the future. 2 thumbs up for Goldilocks. I was pleased to see this. This is the American Association of University Women. And there are many organizations. This one is really focused now on STEM and encouraging women to study engineering and providing scholarships. And if you look around the internet, you will find Girls in Tech and Girl Develop IT and Ladies Who Code, which I love that. And if I'm going too fast and you want to write these down, just Google women organizations for women in technology, and you will find dozens all over the world. And I think, why is it that women seek each other out in this male-dominated world? And I think it's because I've heard so many stories from other women who told me that the first time they found themselves in a conference room with men, as a young woman early in their professional career, the men turned to them and asked them to get them coffee or to bring them tea. And this is such a common story. I've heard it from so many women, especially in Asia and Latin America, that it pushes them to feel they must work twice as hard as every man the rest of their careers, to never be mistaken again for the girl who would get them tea. I think that is why you will find so many organizations for women in technology. But I will tell you that even at the highest levels of society, women like Venus Williams, the tennis champion, had to fight for equal pay. And if you were interested in her story, there was a fantastic documentary called Venus Versus that talks about how she shamed the men of Britain into compensating women tennis players equally with men. That was in 2007. It was not a huge gap. It was not millions of dollars. She doesn't need millions of dollars. She has tens of millions of dollars. It was the principle that she fought for. And we need women in those levels fighting for those principles, even if they don't need it themselves. I think sports is a great way to reach men. So I will tell you a story about football. Even though I must confess, a member of my own culture, it's American football. I know most of you don't think of that as football, or maybe even a sport. But it's an interesting story if you think about audience. Most people in America would tell you that football is a male sport. But it turns out that 40% of fans of the National Football League are women. And when they recognized that, they realized more women watch the Super Bowl than the Academy Awards. And then they realized that women make 85% of the purchasing decisions in my country. Think about that. More men's shirts are bought by women for their husbands and children than by men. So if you are thinking about broadening your audience, reaching more people, you should be thinking about marketing to women. And it's not so easy, targeting this demographic. You have to make sure your marketing team is not made up exclusively of men. This may seem obvious, but we are all guilty of blind spots. You must have a diverse team to reach a diverse audience. You must determine what your current message is. Is the NFL already seen as a male-dominated sport? Maybe you have to work twice as hard. And you have to manage your expectations about the time it takes to reach a new audience. And then I would tell you, don't think pink. And I must confess that comes from my friend Lisa Johnson, who wrote this book about how American women like myself are so sick of pink by the time we're adults that if you use pink to market to us, you will turn us off. And if you are really interested in designing for women, I would also recommend this book, Gender Design and Marketing. that looks at psychology and sociology and the impact of subtle visual cues. Another of my favorite authors, Deborah Tannen, studies the way men and women communicate. And what I love about her is she is brilliant, not in passing judgment, that one is better and one is worse, but that when we understand those differences, we communicate better. Another book I would recommend is called Blink. And Blink is by Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote Tipping Point and Outliers and many other books more famous. But this book looks at why sometimes your first impression, that first instinct, is 100% right, and sometimes that intuition, that first impression, is completely wrong. And he explores many anecdotes in this book, like all of his others, to make this case. But one of them that I think is really relevant to think about in thinking of our own blind spots was a study of classical music. And he went and talked to many orchestras that had the same challenge that technology does. More women needed to be in orchestras to diversify them. There are more men in orchestras than women, and the men would tell you there simply weren't enough talented women musicians. So somebody got the idea to put up a screen in front of the auditioning musician, so that the men and women, usually men, the audience, who were deciding which musician should join the orchestra, could not see the musician. They could only hear the music. And lo and behold, when they put up that screen, and the men could no longer see if the person playing violin was a man or a woman, they brought more women into the orchestra. Now, I'm sure if you talk to any of those men, they would tell you that they thought they were picking the best musician. They were not consciously trying to be sexist or prejudiced. It was a blind spot. They did not realize until they no longer could tell that the musicians were women. Inclusion builds success because you attract more customers, you create better products, you recognize talent better, and we can help to educate all of the great minds of our future. I admit to my own prejudice, I had the honor in 2005 of helping to create an internet literacy program in the country of El Salvador. I do a lot of work in Spanish. And the best student from this program was to win a scholarship that I sponsored myself. And there were 10 finalists and only 2 were women, and I am completely guilty because I chose a girl. And I will tell you, she was great. And she graduated this year, and she works in IT, and I'm very proud of her. But I will promise you, when there are 8 women candidates and only 2 men, I will try to be more careful of my own prejudice. I am not the only woman who thinks we need to educate girls better. I am not the only woman who knows that as they get older, it's hard. There are many women fighting for equal education in places much harder than where I grew up. But I will tell you that if we all work together, maybe she really will be the next Steve Jobs. Thank you.
For the talk and also for the perspective regarding getting women into technology, but also not just thinking about it from the top, but from the bottom up and from a very early age. Mana, you're growing up in a society which is seen by people from other continents as being very much male-dominated. However, you are one of the youngest engineers and you have the first degree in computer engineering. How do you reflect on what Dorothy and Janine have said in terms of your own culture and your own country?
First of all, I would like to comment on that. Although this is true when you look at the society at large, however, my mother at home, she has graduated as a computer scientist, and she was ranked as number 3 in mathematics in Kuwait back in the 70s. However, it was a male-dominated society that prevented her from going abroad and getting the education she wanted to be, because she wanted to be a surgeon. So when she did the computer science, she just did it because this was the only logical thing that she can do. I grew up in an environment where I was always pushed to the limits, where I had to prove myself and I had to make sure that I have something to talk about that should be respected. I had my Barbie dolls. However, I had to work for them. So.
And you're still wearing pink?
And I'm still wearing pink. The thing is that I was blessed and lucky to be brought up in such a family that, yes, I had to choose I was asked to choose what gift would I want to have. So I was actually taken to the toy store. However, when I picked the toys I wanted, I wasn't, although my parents had purchased it for me, I did not go back home and had it immediately. It was stored until I get a good grade in an exam, a full grade actually, that I would go to the dream room in the house and pick which one that I would have today.
Very interesting parenting technique.
Actually, it happened because my father once took me to the store and I loved some of the toys. However, he said, now you have to work hard for them. It was the bad cup, good cup discussion between my parents. And my mom said, no, you can't give her everything. And he said, but I trust she will do good. And my mom said, we always need to have motivation. So as a result of this discussion, I didn't get the toy at the end of the day. We went back home, I got the good grade. However, when we went back to the store, it was sold out. So my father's heart was broken and he said, I'm not ever going to do it again. However, my mom will rule when it comes to a motivational technique. So that paid very well throughout my whole life until this very moment. As a matter of fact, before me asking for anything, I would always ask myself, did I do good today before going and asking for a favor? Now, having been brought up in such an environment, it had absolutely made me think about how to compete. And I always counterpart the discussion when it happens back home in my country and all the Arab countries, when we say we want equal, we want to be equal, women are equal to men. I disagree with that. I'm a female and you're a male. I don't need to be equal to you. All I need is to have an equal opportunity. So if you're better, you get the job. If I'm better, I get the job. That's what I want. We need to compete. Being a computer engineer, let me put it this way and conclude with it, is that it's one of those jobs that you need to keep up with the trends and with the updates, and that's very difficult. Coming from a society where the normal average size of a family is to have 4 to 5 kids, it's not an easy thing for any female to keep up with taking care of a family as well as being able to hop on the job again. To keep up with the updates and to keep up with everything that's happening in the technical world makes it very difficult for women to pick up again 4 or 5 times drops of the career roadmap. So yes, they do drop off unfortunately, although they graduate with a majority. Like if you have a class of computer engineers, the majority will be females. However, when you track them throughout the career path, you will not find as much that had continued. I hope that one day we see that getting better. It is absolutely getting better, thanks to the accessibility that had allowed females to continue their self-education at home when they're parenting. So I do see it empowering, I do see hope, and I see it getting better. To add to that, it's the easy use of smartphones that had allowed women to keep up with technology. Like previously, when a woman leaves on a maternity leave for 6 months, for example, it was very difficult to take time off from taking care of the baby and getting on the computer. However, now she has the smartphone, and whenever the baby is like having a nap for 10 minutes, the smartphone is up and running. She doesn't actually need to go and turn on a computer. Actually, the reason why she's being up to date is because she needs now to keep up with her children, with the kids. And all the kids in my country do have iPads. I had this dilemma, is it a good thing or a bad thing? But I found out that it's a good thing from observing what my niece and nephews are doing. It is empowering them and giving them a privilege of being educated. And my sisters now who are engineers, however not computer, are becoming more and more familiar with technology because of their kids. So I see a lot of hope. I see the future much brighter. It just needs more support.
Thank you, Manal. Ifat, you're running a women's business development center. What are the kind of opportunities which your center addresses, and what are the kind of hurdles you're trying to overcome?
Well, I would really like to talk here about the women that we are trying to approach and reach and support. The Women Business Development that I'm heading now is a center that has been in place, very successfully operating for 13 years now. The center has been providing lots of training courses, workshops in different areas, in skill development, in ICT, in vocational training for women. I mean, very successful in that. But the question that we really address is, did the center or other centers equivalent supporting women in rural areas, did they really succeed in the main target of having these women live a better quality life? And many of you, I don't know if you're going to share my result. The result and the observation says, no, we did not by all means, and with all the efforts that we have been doing. And the reason why, Peter, is that I feel now, after living with these women, that we have been very unfair to them. And how? Because we have been empowering them by having them learn better, by supporting them to read and write, by giving them a little bit of microcredits and all that kind of services. But we have not been providing them with the real job opportunities and the real work. We always give them the responsibility of trying to find for themselves work to do. And unfortunately, I see that happening in Egypt, that what we need to do is that we need to create a mechanism that would allow the providers, and here the providers, here the real service provider down to earth, who really work with the grassroots, not the people sitting in their offices, but people who do work with the grassroots, who are the NGOs that are existing within the rural areas themselves. So what we seriously feel like, or what we found out with our experience, that we are missing the mechanism which allows the NGOs within the rural areas to do good work, or to have a market for themselves within their own communities, and they can empower women to have either their own micro-business opportunities, or they can employ them within their own projects. And what does that require? That requires a bit more than learning, and a bit more than getting to know of what is happening. They require, what we found out, more of e-knowledge here rather than e-information. We believe that e-knowledge here is the knowledge of the best practices that has been happening in the communities themselves. So if we can manage to capture the successful experiences that have been taking place within the communities themselves and try to pass over these experiences from one community to the other and have pilot testing projects for them in innovative areas. The mistake that we have been doing in Egypt, and I guess it's very similar in many other places, is that we have been teaching women more of pottery kind, of textile, of garments, of that kind of small little things that she never grows with for the community itself. But we would like to see more of NGOs working in waste recycling and teaching the women and youth. And here I would really like to put the logo of women and youth rather than women only, because women cannot work without the youth. And as we have seen, the youth, they have the power, they have the energy, they have the vision, they don't have the vision, I shouldn't say that, but they have the energy to really develop their own communities. So what are we targeting in our experience? We are launching the Women Business Development Center is currently launching a new initiative, which is an explanatory title. It's a community-based knowledge innovation and social entrepreneurship initiative, where we are trying to put into place this value chain mechanism, where each party participating in this initiative has to be adding a value and not really repeating things that are old enough.
Thank you very much. In fact, putting the emphasis on not teaching, but on seeing what kind of jobs can actually create new sustainable sustenance and living within local communities. And unless one has that kind of concept, all the other things fall short. I thank you very much for that kind of insight and also the kind of policy experience which is behind this. Chitrangani, in terms of Sri Lanka, what is the situation regarding the gendered use of technology in this country? And how are you coping with it, and what are the programs you are having actually?
Actually, for me personally, I have never felt that gender was an issue for me personally, but in preparing for this panel discussion today, I find that in Sri Lanka actually there is a big discrepancy when it comes to IT. It's heavily male dominated. 79% of the workforce is male and just 21 female, and unfortunately that was the situation even 5 years ago. So from 5 years ago to now, although we've achieved a lot in IT development, in getting women into that area, we have not really been that successful. I think one of the reasons is that in Sri Lanka, like in other parts of Asia, women have stereotypical roles assigned to them as being mothers, and you also get to select subjects which are more girly-like and not really technology-oriented, and you can see that in university also. In most of the technological courses, they're all heavily male-dominated. But in the IT area, although there is this huge discrepancy with 79% male in the workforce, but when it comes to BPO and IT-enabled services, it's more equitable. I mean, it's still low for females, but it's still getting there, and that is because it's the younger age group. with children of 21 to 25 years or so. So that seems, I mean, it's encouraging, because that means the younger people are going into IT and becoming more interested in IT-oriented work. So in the future, you might see that in other areas of work as well. The other problem is in a lot of these BPO and IT-enabled services here in Sri Lanka where women are involved. This is at the lower end, which means late working hours, traveling late in the night. There are issues that they have to contend with. And then there is this argument that, okay, if it is IT, you can work from home. I think that's really a bad one, because working from home, I mean, you're a woman, you don't really want to stay at home and work. It might be effective in the sense you can manage your kids and cook and but you are cut off. You don't have that public exposure and connections with the rest of the world. So I don't think women should be made to stay home just because IT gives you the opportunity to do so. So we need, I think in Sri Lanka and maybe elsewhere as well, we need to get our policy. There needs to be some policy decisions taken, but to do that we need data, and we don't have the data either. So without data there is no visibility, and when there is no visibility, nobody is going to come forward with policies.
Thank you very much, Shithangani. You give me an idea. We talked yesterday already, and some of us know this, about flipped classrooms. You know, where actually flipping means that through ICT, the learning becomes not only more student-centered, but actually the students know more about ICT than the teachers, and the classroom flips in terms of the hierarchy. Now, maybe this is an invention which ICTA wants to introduce into Sri Lanka, the so-called flipped workplace. The men stay home and use teleworking, and the women go to the office and get to have the coffee there, or the tea. Is that an idea? The flipped workplace? I think, Resham, we can introduce this as one of the results of WSA World Congress as a new invention, the flipped workplace. Now, I have one last question for Dorothy Gordon. If you take the example of Janine Warner, the answer to all the problems is to give every young girl a toolbox. If you believe in Manar El-Ashash's idea, you give everybody a good training. What's the real option? Can we have the microphone? And don't tell me, mix the solutions.
Well, I mean, I'm perplexed. What is the difference? Because if you give somebody a toolbox, it's a form of training, obviously. But I think that even more importantly, since we still have a very male-dominated audience in this room, perhaps the most important thing we should do is to give men training so that they have a greater understanding of how the society they've come to meet has been gendered and how the playing field is not level, and that we need that data, we need to measure, and we need to make sure that our economies are not held back because we are holding women back, that women businesses can grow, and they are not stultified because they are not using the latest in technology. So yes, women need the training, they need the toolbox, but perhaps we need more training for men on how to understand gender within their societies.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. The one thing I'm afraid of is that you will be the schoolmaster. We have 5-10 minutes for interventions from the floor, comments and suggestions, insights, and little snippets of thoughts. Anybody wishing to contribute to what we have discussed this morning? especially on the issues of women ICT. There is somebody here in the back, and he's male, and if we need a microphone, can you just take the microphone and take it? Keep this. Can you get up, please, and reach further forward? Say your name and introduce yourself, and stand up so that we can see you.
My name is Shane Herath. I work for a company here in Sri Lanka called WSA. It's a global IT solutions company. I'm someone who's returned from basically working in the West. Like I went to the UK for my education and returned after 14 years, having sort of lived there for that many years. And one of the things that sort of struck me, this is in sort of connection with what Shitramani said about the kind of complexion of IT in terms of the kind of the breakdowns of male and female. I was really surprised to sort of learn like there are a lot of ladies in IT in comparison to what I was sort of seeing in the UK. I thought there was sort of a huge amount of like ladies who have sort of gotten into IT, which is quite sort of promising. So just sort of add to that what Chitrani said, that's sort of a positive sort of trend. So I guess it's looking quite promising in that regard.
Okay, thank you for the comment and also support. There's another.
Good afternoon.
20 seconds.
Okay, my name is Jeff Okorafo, an opinion Nigeria. I want to say what you have done today is very, very nice and fantastic. You know, talking about women and putting them out there to do something with the internet. That is excellent. I don't want to agree that there is a problem with women and men having competition. There's none. And actually it's not a competition, it's just giving women the chance to understand what is out there for them. And you are already doing the work. So what is left for us here now is to take it to our various countries and say how can we empower women to understand the value of coming out. Because the more they come out, the more they get to stand up where other men are standing. So thank you very much for your contribution.
My name is Ana Pantel. I'm from Serbia and currently living in Colombia. And I really wanted to thank all of our wonderful panelists because everything that you say I think is very true, and it's something that we see every single day, not just in the IT sector, but in pretty much every sector. And I think in order to promote some of the things that we've talked about, I love the example you give from Malcolm Gladwell, and it's so true. There are statistics out there that show that there exists always this bias, and it exists not only between men, but we also see it from women. Women are also more biased and assume that men will be better at performing than women are. So let's try to take gender out of the equation, or even think about if we include more of these diverse perspectives, whether it be gender, whether it be culture. I think we can create better content, we can create better products, and we can create a more fair and a more equal society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Govind Nair, and actually I'm presenting tomorrow, and I found a fascinating connection between what I'm talking about tomorrow in terms of demography and this panel. But I want to say that I am part of what I hope is a majority of people who are disappointed by the decision of the Nobel Committee not to award the prize for peace this year to Malala Yousafzai. That's not what I wanted to say. I wanted to emphasize the region. Sri Lanka is included, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, which has not in the last 10 or 15 years had a woman leader. This is very unusual. We're in a part of the world here, when we look at other countries in this region, the Philippines and Indonesia, the women have played a very important role politically. This underscores to me that we actually have, in global terms, tremendous unused potential. Some of the things I want to talk about tomorrow, in the ability of women to excel in a lot of disciplines. All the data is telling us in North America and Europe, that whether it's in math, engineering, business, law, and so on, but actually women tend to do better when you give them the chance educationally than men, and in professions too. There are still barriers in North America and in Europe
we have a huge potential in this part of the world because the numbers are in our favor. In the next 20 or 30 years are going to be when this big drama plays out as to whether we're going to be able to use that potential.
Thank you very much, Govind. And we are all looking forward to your presentation. I take two more people.
Great talk by the panelists. I'm also very curious, though, in terms of the discrepancies between women in the grassroots level versus the women in influential positions. I know Janine talked about it a little bit and how we can target these women, but I don't think there was a really tangible solution provided. I come from Tanzania. My name is Gloria Mangi, and there's not enough grassroots initiatives being done to target these women. So you have this big gap. So I'm really curious to hear from one of you on how you think we can provide solutions, because you sound more like you come from backgrounds that allowed you to progress in doing what you wanted to do. But what about those girls or those women who can't?
I started the life in about 15 or 20 years, and the successful startups.
Can you tell us your name and where you're from?
I'm sorry, my name is David Shelters. And what I've seen is the teams that have been most successful are teams that aren't all, startup teams aren't all women or all men. The successful ones have been teams that are a great mix. And the thing about the difference between men and women is the way they approach problem solving and decision making. And so the teams that are able to embrace that and use the very different, accept the different perspectives solving the problem, these usually end up being ones of the successful startups, because nowadays startup life cycles have decreased. You have to exit sooner in lives, but to be able to be part of the process, not just having X amount of women, X amount of men, but to really accept what each one has to add to the body of it and share their perspective. This is when decisions, the optimal decisions are being made.
We will be talking, and we will hear more from you, regarding the diversity is actually a key factor for creativity and also for success, especially when it comes to technology and content. Let's have final thoughts. Final thoughts from you, Dorothy. No, because if I start from Chitrangani, you have the last word, and I want to avoid that.
Yes, well, I just wanted to say that when it comes to these kind of issues in the policy area, we have a standard methodology. Let's analyze the problem. So get your baseline data. And I really want to encourage all of you, when you go back to your countries, to check what is the situation. What is the percentage of women who are in university level computer science courses or in IT? What is the percentage of women who are working in the IT sector? And I'm not too keen on BPO, because BPO sometimes is just a question of taking a phone call. And these are sort of like a slightly upgraded version of a traditional female role. But let's get the data. Once we've got the data, we have to map out our strategy. And I think that our friend from Tanzania, and as well as EFATS, emphasized a lot what we have to do in terms of, even within women, making sure that we don't have divides between women who have lots of money and women who have none, women who have access to education, women who have none. We have to make sure it's complex. It's between men and women, and then within women as well. And that we have to make sure that rural women, and I think here, Peter, that's one of the most exciting winners for me, is the group from Bangladesh. I don't know if you're in the room. I looked at your products, and it is content creation at the village level. And I think the most important thing is if we can encourage women to create their own locally relevant content. Is that the Bangladeshi team over there smiling broadly? No. But that was a wonderful product, because it's trained the women how to create their own content and how to put it online. And as a result, they're developing skills which they can then market.
So if that satisfies some of your concerns.
Thank you. Janine, please.
Taking educating to another level, if you read the article about Colombo in Wired magazine, you will find that her teacher not only tried to teach the boys and the girls equally, but he turned education upside down in their model from rote memorization to problem solving. And he stopped teaching the students solutions. He started giving them problems and encouraging them to solve them themselves. And in my own life, I think the toolbox for me represented my mother teaching me to solve problems myself. And if there's a skill that has helped me, that is the greatest. There's one other thing I will say to the women in the room. It's something I think as we evolve and we get more professional, many of us feel that we have to be twice as good as men to succeed. And this is a common phrase, or maybe even 10 times. I would tell you the side effect of that that's very unfortunate are studies that show that men will try something new when they are 60% proficient. And women think they must wait until they are 120% proficient. And so I will look around this room of women and tell you, if you are 60% proficient, go for it.
Thank you very much, Janine. Manar, please.
Well, I'd like to pick up what Janine has just said. It's a cliche that we have all been taught. And on top of all of that, if you come from a younger generation, you have to manage older people, that's even a disastrous situation. Not only that I have to work as twice, not 10 times, no matter how much times, I'm never enough. The thing is that I ask myself the same question every single day. Should I stop? Should I just wait till I grow up, not mature? So this is a debate. Is it a matter of a number that I have to put on some wrinkles and wait till the time comes as they stereotype the manager's image? So I know for all those ladies in the room whom are probably my age or even younger, because they can take the lead, especially if you're starting up a small business, and that's something that I have gone through 10 years ago. And I was never taken seriously when I started up my company that does software development, although we were talking about mobile applications, which is the world today. Nobody took us seriously that time. What I would advise you to do is to go on with it, continue with it, because people, even if they don't take you seriously for it at that time, now they do, and now they know, and now they will listen carefully, because now they regret that you have said it first 10 years ago, but nobody has listened. So although it takes longer to do business, yet it always now puts me in front.
Thank you, Manar. Ifat, please.
Well, I would like to get back to our Tanzanian friend. A mechanism for bridging the gap between the women or the people who have had the chance with the disadvantaged communities, if you may say, is very important. And I think a national institution or a national center should be taking care of that. One very important issue that has been touched on is that in our experience, in our new experience, we found out that it is not advisable that we go to women or youth and tell them, find out what are your problems so that we challenge them by their problems. We're now addressing to them another question totally for their new arena of work, is that what is your asset-based community development opportunities that you have had? And we have learned through experiences that if we train the young people on trying to do this ABCD studies, which I learned from them, they figure out lots of opportunities for themselves based on their own community assets. So here we advise them to start working with communities of practice rather than with families or factories or whatever, but they build their own community and start to work with.
Thank you very much, Eva. Chitrangani, you have the last word.
Can I take that for sure? You're not going to talk after I do? Okay, Peter, I have that.
Can I tell you what the real reality is? Reshan will have the last word.
I want to just touch on something somebody said about reaching the communities. I think like we all talk about ourselves and from what we know and our level of technology, but what is important is that ICTs make life better for rural communities. And Mr. Veeratunga said earlier on in the day in Sri Lanka, 77% of our population is rural, and we know for a fact that ICT would make their life better. There is instances of gender-based violence and in rural areas as well as in others maybe, and also nutrition, health, all those things can be improved if women are empowered with knowledge. And I think in Sri Lanka going forward, education is going to be the most important determinant in making that playing field level and that women are more knowledgeable. But at the same time, for enterprise development, I know there is Samira out here from Dialogue. He was telling me of a story that they've done a project with where they've worked with some women, and there are women who just by owning a mobile phone have been able to develop their businesses. A woman who was just making lunch packets and selling it to the people in the area. She was depending only on her landline, which was also owned by her husband, but now just access to a mobile phone has made a huge difference. But she had to know that, somebody had to tell her that before she could actually get onto it. So there are little things that we can do at the grassroots which might make a big difference. And there we end, Peter.
Thank you very much, Chitrangani. Let's give a hand to our panelists, some gifts of appreciation, because this is a real perfect organization here.
Yes, of course, Professor Brook. So let me invite once again to give the tokens of appreciation to the wonderful panel by Professor Brook himself. So may I invite Dorothy Gordon, and Janine Warner, and Engineer Mana Al-Hashas, Jasna Magic, Efad Al-Shuki, and our own Chitrangani Mubarak. So that ends the sessions before lunch, and we will be winding up for lunch now. About the lunch announcements, I was informed by the hotel that the hot buffet are being served at the terrace out there because of it's something hot, bit of hot outside also, and the salads, desserts and the soups are being served at the entrance or the foyer area. And after the lunch, we will not be coming to this hall. We will be breaking out for other sessions, 2 sessions. How the sessions happening is there's one hall in the basement, and it's called Winchester, and there's another hall prepared in the 10th floor, which is called Victoria. So for the winners who are going to be doing their presentations, the sessions on e-inclusion and empowerment is happening at the basement. The session on e-health and environment will be happening on the 10th floor. That's just after lunch. And after evening tea, again a breakout session. Session on e-learning and science is happening on the basement. The session on e-culture and tourism on 10th floor. And after those 2 sessions, at around 6 o'clock, we'll be coming back again to this particular hall. That is for the Business Smashing World Cafe. So that's all the announcements.